May 19th, calling the select board to order. First item is additions or adjustments to the agenda. Are there any additions or adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I have a kind of a question. Number 17. I guess it's under 17 under the agenda. But it looks like it's a different number on the packet.
Let's go by agenda number.
Okay, we'll go by agenda number, which is 17. Highway open position. I believe that item should be discussed in an executive session, and I would.
No, we should come out and make a motion.
Yeah, you know, the highway, it should be under, I think, 1 VSA 313A3.
Okay, we could do that. There's one other way to skin this cat. Can we move 17 under 19? Discuss the executive session and then come out of this executive session.
Put it after
And take
19.
that up.
You're the boss, you see that.
I'm comfortable with that instead of pause,
Seems
the back open.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
I totally support Mike's concept, you know, if you need it, you told me a month or whatever it is.
No objections, we're good to go. Any other additions or adjustments? Tom, I believe you had one.
There was, two that came. One is, I haven't heard from the village, so this might be premature, maybe you guys have heard more, but, I guess the village would like the town to pay half of the extra cell phone. That's the town uses during emergency situations.
Yeah,
Do we want to wait to formalize that outside of the meeting and then we just kind of come up with an MOU, or do you want to talk about it today?
we could discuss it quick and get marching orders.
Have they made a formal request?
They haven't, I haven't received it. Have you seen it?
I talked with Ken and he mentioned it. I don't have
They talked
anything in
about
writing.
at their board meeting.
They did talk at their board meetings.
Yeah.
We could talk about that quick in the beginning of the administrator's report and
Okay.
understand that there's nothing to sign.
And the other is a bike charging station maintenance agreement with the village, which I also, it is again texted as a possible. I think we can talk about it, but I think we should form that MOU before we, you know, or do you want to like formalize it, or do you want to talk about it open? I don't.
I think we can talk about that.
Okay.
Right in that same thing, because they're both with the village, different topics, but
Sure.
we'll have a. Pre-7 twice.
And then lastly, an executive session for real estate. To negotiate real estate lease or purchase negotiations. I'm not sure, I didn't
I
say
think there's
that.
2 topics to talk about now, yes.
I was trying to look up what the executive session was for that.
We can look it up,
Statute, right?
Yeah,
yes. It's added. You can find it in the sheet.
that,
Any other additions or adjustments?
I think I can do this under select board concerns, but I'll just do it under select board issues and concerns, because it was raised as a concern on me.
Okay, next up is invoices and orders. Any questions about the invoices or orders that are going around?
I just want to make it clear that there is an invoice in there for Dale Construction in the amount of 125 something. And where that should actually be 47,800. And have Tom, even though some of us have signed that, recognize that that is the case in Rosemary and Tom, we're gonna make those changes tomorrow.
we will notify you of we'll send out a new warrant.
The board is under that understanding as a whole. Correct? Correct. Okay. Public comment, is there any comment from the public, Lois?
Not right now.
Next up is select board issues or concerns. Duncan, I believe you had something for this?
I have one, I was called by Doug Moldy, to find out if there were any bids submitted for the rail trail building improvements, do you know? Did you receive any bids?
I received none. I know he reached out to the same contractor twice for this. Randall is on.
It's. Who is actually, who circulated the RFP you read?
Randall circulated, questions were supposed to go to Randall, but submissions were supposed to come to me. And so that, if they went to Randall, we should accept it. I think we can check in.
Okay, if we can check in, if we got bids, great, if we didn't, I would like to extend. The opportunity to bid to our next board meeting.
I believe Randall's on the call, but if, as far as I know, this is in his report, that's the RFP for improvements to the Welcome Center. Was posted for a 4:30 deadline, there were no bids submitted, so the RFP was reposted for 5:14 deadline. That is in his report, I understand it's after 5:14, but. Do we need a formal motion now or just bring it up under Randall's?
Let's bring it up under, he can let us know what happened under his report.
Okay,
My interest is based on Doug's suggestion would be to extend the process, because Doug is quite certain that he knows that we would receive then.
okay. Any other select board issues or concerns?
I had a couple things. I don't know if I brought it up in a meeting or outside of the meeting, but I was curious if anyone would be opposed if we change select board issues and concerns, like the title name to updates and concerns. Just so that, sometimes I give updates on things and I would like to hear updates from others if there are like any updates that are important. So that's one thing.
So just add updates into the,
Yeah, select board updates and concerns instead of select board issues and concerns.
An issue and a concern is kind of redundant. Isn't it?
it's a little.
Issues and concerns.
So you're suggesting substitute issues with updates.
Updates and or concern.
Yeah.
How's the board feel?
6 of one, half a dozen other than negative.
Really?
Peter?
Updates and or concerns?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good to me.
Okay,
I assumed you were good with it. You posted the word.
yeah. Well, yeah, adding and or is fine with me too. And then I just wanted to mention that we're having that meeting on May 28th. Me, Peter and Tom and Randall will be there for doing a working session on the possible reconstruction of committees and commissions. Well, not about commissions, but we'll see. So I want to mention that, and I just want to get clarification. So I know last meeting we, as a board decided that we weren't gonna post the agenda packet online. But I wanted to know if someone messages me for the agenda packet before our meeting, should I send it to them? Or should I have Tom send it to them if he's comfortable? Because I think we talked about maybe redacting some things if someone reached out to us for the agenda packet. So I think I would have Tom send it to him, right?
Well, anything that has to do with a bid or a contract or something like that, that may be discussed in executive session. Or has the potential. Shouldn't be sent out to anybody.
I mean, I think anybody here can send anything to anyone. And you guys have to use. You're obligated under those privileges. To know what is and what isn't. And I think you have to, if you have any concern, just redact it and send it out. And I think that might simplify it to just. Because if it starts coming to me and it starts building up, I'm probably just gonna treat it like a FOIA request. Which means it has to go through the custodian of documents to say, Tom, you have 5 days to issue this. I send it back to the custodian then makes the formal decision whether or not things need to be excluded or not, and reply to it stating. That, I cannot fulfill this request due to X, or I can't consider this request fulfilled. And I think, like, this doesn't have to be a crazy thing. If you want to send stuff out, send it out, and then, we can all, if you we can all make that judgment on our own. But if you're gonna make it on me to make that formal judgment, then I'm gonna pass it off to be the formal judgment of our custodian documents and. You know, I just think, but the six of us can, if we're gonna. You're gonna leave it on me to make the judgment. Because you don't want to, then I'm gonna pass it off. But if you can. Ask me to do it because you think that's my job, that's different. You know,
I'm gonna take somewhat contrary view, imagine that. I don't think any of us individually should send it out. I think that should be something that Tom does. And it should be his judgment, because I think if we send out something, any one of us can send out anything that we want. And the consequence of that is you might send out something that shouldn't be sent out.
Yeah,
And even though state law prevents us from being sued individually for performing our role as select board members, it wouldn't prevent somebody from potentially suing us. So I just think there's a liability issue associated with it, and I think it would be better to have Tom do it. And yeah, I think you just gonna have to make a judgment as to whether or not it's covered under open meeting law or not. I wouldn't treat it as a FOIA request. I'd say it's a select board report. It's designed for the select board, and as soon as it hits us, it's a public document.
so I think from here on, for the public, if anybody asks me for the packet. If I get to it, great, but if I don't, I'm not gonna take time out of my Monday when I'm rushing to get things together for the meeting. My goal is to get you guys ready for this meeting. And a lot of times Monday, there's some critical issues that come up during the day that I have to solve. And then Duncan, you sent 2 big issues today, and I was working on the highway stuff today. To send out those individual emails is gonna slow me down, and I will handle it if I can, and if I can't, I'll just get to it on Tuesday.
Yep.
And that's just how it's gonna be.
And I think it should be. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said the report is not for the benefit of the public, it's for the benefit of the select board to help us make good decisions.
Donna,
I'm just wondering if I wanna get a copy of it, just to refer to for the minutes, because it's often helpful. Should I ask you? It sounds like maybe I shouldn't ask you, but I shouldn't ask anyone else either. Maybe I should just give up on the idea of referring to the packet.
What do you guys, if you want me to send it out to her, would I send it out to you?
How's the board feel?
yeah,
Well, a packet is something that's probably relatively new in the whole scheme of things, isn't it?
2020, I think is when it started to get.
See? So it's relatively new.
But the
Since-
existence of a packet that's existed for as long as I've taken minutes for you guys. Duncan used to have it available at the meeting.
Yeah.
With his report.
Right, but it wasn't sent out to everybody and their brother with the agenda though, years ago.
You could pick it up at the meeting. If I wanted to
Right.
see it, I could
Right.
pick it up then.
And that's where part of the reason I feel it's, and I used to give them to you,
Yeah.
after the meeting, so because as you said, it helped you put together your minutes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes my reports were fairly detailed on these things, but there might have been things that were confidential, attorney-client privilege things, which shouldn't be made available to the general public. And I think that we just have to bite the bullet and redact those items, from anybody's request to get those.
so if someone emails me and asks for it, I'll say we can get it on Tuesday. Or if they come to the meeting. Like, what do I say? I'm just asking, what do I say?
I think we need to pull the board here. You're saying we should report the request to Tom, and that's fine. He'll have to use his judgment, redact what's needed. What's not. He's saying he's busy on Monday. But there's potential for some things being answered.
Today I got them out.
Let's go.
Today,
I have no problem with John having packet, help 30 minutes.
I mean,
If he
you-
receives it at the meeting with the redacted information. I'm fine with that, seems like it used to work.
Yep.
That's.
Rosemary's treasurer, could certainly get a copy of the packet, I would think.
Trust Rosemary with my social security number.
I don't even wanna say packet, I just wanna say report.
Well, you see, tonight's packet, really, there's nothing in here. This is an innocuous packet. You see, and this could have been disseminated to everybody. You know. I mean, we could have them all printed,
I think
back
that
them up here.
the root of the question is request for packet, where do they go? There was a request for a packet today, and I sent it. Because I don't know if there's perfect direction, which should go through, and I didn't want to put Tom in the middle of. Packets are for the board, whatever, I sent it individually. I'm fine with not doing that and forwarding those requests to Tom. I just want to know what the board wants.
I feel a little bit like a pawn, like I have direction from the board not to send it out. And I feel like I'm being pulled in different ways, and I don't really care what you want me to do, but as long as you guys could just be clear tonight, it's all that matters.
That's the direction I can make. There's a request, what do we do with it? We tell them we're gonna hold Tom? Peter, how do you feel?
Get hold of Tom and Tom respond when he has time.
Kate? That.
Fine with
Relatively
me.
drive with you, you're fine with that?
Yeah,
And what about me? Should I email Tom and specifically ask for it? Or are you gonna just send it to me or what?
I think
Could you
you
just,
can be on Tom's list for. Receivable by default
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah,
Well-
Rosemary.
and Rosemary.
I'm gonna muddy the waters here, as usual. From time to time. Sometimes in the past, I don't see any recommendations from the town administrator. A lot of times on our reports that we have, Tom will say, my recommendation is to do thus and so. I don't think that should be in there because I think it gives the impression that maybe the tail's wagging dog sometimes.
Well, that's why,
I don't think the public should be privy, especially stuff like that.
the stop sign one, I did in this, I think you bring up a good point, is, I think. I don't give many opinions during the meeting, I mean, I do occasionally, but not often. But I do, when it's a package just for you guys, I'll tell you whatever I'm thinking, because you can say, Tom, I don't care, and I'll be like, okay, I don't care. You know, but if I put it online, I can't do those things, I can't, you know, I think that's a very valid point.
That's your report, that's not the packet
Yeah.
data.
And that to me is a really good reason, again, my strong belief is. We as a board need to have as much information as you can give us. Well researched, and I personally am. I'd like to see an opinion, I may not always agree with you,
Yeah,
but I like to see you provide a recommendation for something.
I mean, it's times where it sparks phone conversations, so then you get that deep context and then say, okay, because if the data that I'm putting in doesn't support my opinion, it raises that question.
Yeah.
What's missing, right? I think there's a value to that, but how do you be fully transparent without misleading? I think that's a good point. And so I'm very happy to put the packet up without my report, so it's just a packet of documents, but not the written word, and then those have to be, requested. And that's another option we can do.
I feel like you could give context without an opinion. I'm fine with either way.
No,
I think to answer your question, the majority of the board. Said board is robust Tom.
Okay, that's good.
The board is fine with Tom using. His own discretion to decide what's in it and redacted and. Get to people in a timely manner that fits his schedule. I'm 100% there.
Yeah, and to your point, Tom, if you send out a redacted report and somebody. Then submits a FOIA request. I suppose you could. And then we could contact our attorney and our attorney could advise us as to. Whether or not that is properly redacted or not. And deal with it that way, but I just think the first initial take on it. I wouldn't turn it. For a request, just send it out and There it is.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Right.
If this hadn't started in 2020,
Are there any
we wouldn't be talking
updates?
about it now.
Any updates, issues or concerns from,
I mean,
I had one other that I just thought about, at our last board meeting, the board authorized Tom and I to put together an RFP for cemetery. Can you just add that to the list of old business stuff? I just don't want that to fall on.
definitely, next up, planned purchases, are there any? Tom, Rosemary, time to spend money? Oh, yes. Next up is the Conservation Commission. Welcome. It almost feels like you guys are filling the entire audience tonight.
Take over more seats.
Good turnout.
Maybe I should have them come up closer,
Yeah,
or you have to speak real loud.
you need some more support, then bring them up.
so we received your report. One thing I did notice, Lois, and on the back, well,
Loose in the back.
loose in the back, okay. When you sent Tom the report, you were using his T gallon at Town of Johnson. That's, remember when you had the packet on Friday, and you said, I don't know where Lois's report is, and then you forwarded it today, I saw that it was the T gallon at Town of Johnson, but it's TOJ. Or a TOJ admin,
That's why I couldn't find
yeah.
it.
It doesn't matter, that's just a
Okay, that's why.
comment, Lois got it in well within time, it's, just.
Like Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, I'm like, Lois is usually right on top of these things.
But, you know, that brings up a point, though, that it would really be helpful for all the volunteers if there was a list of the correct addresses and what goes to whom. You know, for instance, minutes go to everybody in the office. And is that still necessary? It goes to Rosemary, Susan, Lydia, and Tom.
I only send minutes to Lydia since she's the only person that posts stuff on the website.
Well, I'm saying what I was told to do and have been doing. And so I think that some of us who have, you know, come on board later have different ideas. And if we just had a check sheet of who gets what, when, and why, not even why, just we'll do it, but.
A
so
communication check sheet would be great.
Yeah.
That's probably a different planning session meeting, but
That old
No,
email should have been bounced back to you. That's supposed to be put involved and then forwarded to the TOJ.
nothing came back,
can you add that to the old business, Tom, so we don't forget that, because I feel like I'm gonna forget it.
but you got my second one, Tom?
No, I put an email out saying I swore I got it back from you, but I couldn't find it anywhere in my email.
See, I responded to your email
Yeah,
with it,
interesting.
but I CC'd Peter, so Peter had it.
Yeah, and then I forwarded it.
And did you notice that? It doesn't matter.
But everybody read it, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
I
good,
actually did.
okay.
I have, I don't know if we can read this aloud for the public if you want, or we can just go right into it. The land survey for Goma Town Forest. I asked Peter at one point, but we need numbers. Cause it was, Peter brought it up at a select board meeting under issues and concerns. And said it would be cheaper before the leaves were on the trees, yada, 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 but. I'm not comfortable with approving something without a dollar, amount, so. Is that something the Conservation Commission could get numbers on, or would you like to have Tom get numbers on survey?
I think that Peter and Tom have been speaking about it.
Oh, I still have a copy. Yeah.
So they did get numbers, but I think we're trying to negotiate with one surveyor to just. So the issue is there's one line of concern, right? And so one survey number was for the cost to do boundary lines on all sides, and I would like to reach out to the surveyor and say, okay. We really only need 4 corners and 1 line. And that would save us considerable amount of time in the field, so. I would just, you know, they're actively getting numbers for you, is the short answer.
Okay.
And your question, I think I know what it is, but it didn't specifically say why you want or feel it's one of your highest priorities.
Well, the reason that that's a priority, and a high priority is that we need to know what our boundaries are, because there's the potential of people infringing on our land. And we think that may be the case, we just don't know. The last time I was up there and some of the others, we could see where somebody had actually started to lay out like they were gonna have a little camp or something up there, and they'd had a fire and all that, but it was actually on our land. Now, that doesn't mean as they progress, they haven't moved differently, we don't know. Cause I haven't been back up.
There were problems like that happened years ago. So,
But if you have your lines, then you've got something to go by.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're looking for, we're looking to leave a good foundation for that parcel of land, and one is the survey. And we know that there's probably 3 very good green ones on state, at least one line is the state. One line is the state line, there's a lot of
Yeah.
good survey material already done, but there's one line that's,
And that was gonna be one of my questions or comments, is that, and Rosemary, you can tell me if I'm all wrong on this, but I think under Vermont law regarding surveys, the first one in is the one that gets recognized, unless there's a second one where there's a dispute, in which case it has to go to court, basically, to resolve the dispute in the line. So one of my questions would be, on that line where you're having some difficulties, is there already a recorded survey? And the reason I ask that is because if there is, and we do our own survey and it disagrees with the survey that they've done, we're gonna be in a position of having to defend our survey in a court, which is not necessarily something you want to defend.
well, I can't answer that question,
If it
because
had-
we didn't look into that.
Yeah, and if it hasn't been surveyed and we're the first one in, then they would have to dispute it.
Yeah, I think, so I did some deed research, I think one day, started when you were finished with you. It looks like it's not surveyed, and there seems to be a error in the description of a recent deed, 0.74 acres. Which describes the northwest, southeast side of the lot of the road, and I think that is likely where the problem is at, occurring. Which a survey would obviously correct.
But the deed description of that parcel might not be.
It's a subdivision of a larger parcel with the right of way going through it, and it's 0.74 acres on X side of the road. But if you go on that side of the road, there's no point, it doesn't exist. It has to be on like the northeast side, there's just the southwest side or something. I think that's where the error occurs, but anyways, well.
We're also looking to do a management plan and possibly identifying some trees for harvesting. We want to make sure we harvest on our property unless somebody.
We're looking at the management plan to see what's available up there, and if in fact it's ready for harvest, it very well may not be, but we don't know. So we're getting that as opposed to the ecologically informed management plan that in time we could do, which would really help lay out the various, there's all kinds of different opportunities on that parcel of land. It's good size. And so,
There was a management plan done on Gumbo.
oh yeah, we have habitat management plans in different places, and we work those. I mean, that's what we use our budget for, is we go in and brush hog and do apple tree release and do those kinds of things.
Didn't the county forester do a forestry plan on that years ago too?
Oh yeah, Mike Reed did one years ago.
been so long now.
Yeah.
Like that date, but
Decades.
right. Well, and Ray Toolin did one with, you know, us, the Conservation Commission. Helped him to see that he had to stay on the land, but we're just trying to get the house in order so that when we're not here, you know, we know that there's one line that's okay. Bob did the survey on part of it. But that was just because there was a dispute.
Where do you plan on going?
Was it?
Where do you plan on going to?
Well, you never know.
It may or may not be the opportune time, but because we're talking about the Como Town Forest. I don't know where it's gonna land, but there was discussions in a couple of select board meetings about. Prime ag offset for the industrial park. There are massive angst about that with the Conservation Commission.
We have two other members here and they can speak too, but I don't have any angst about it. You know, there's several really nice apple orchards up there. It was agricultural land, the sheep farm.
I wouldn't call it shrine. So,
Well,
It's the way
no,
the state
I know,
But it-
I know though, how
does
they do
their
it, but it's.
soil
Yeah,
mapping.
soil, according to the soil maps, I was very surprised too. I saw that, but
well, and
Just
the apples that are growing up there, of course, because we keep taking care of them, are really good. We get some good pies and stuff when folks go up and pick apples. Do you want to ask two other members back there?
They're welcome to come up and sit with you.
I'm gonna sit closer, because I watched this the other day, people talking from back there, you can't hear.
Yeah.
Just to comment on the prime ag, I don't think that would be an issue, because the stipulation is just that it's not developed.
Correct,
So-
yeah, it's already not developed. The
Yeah, and
town
it's-
Owns it,
I mean,
we probably will never do anything with
Yeah.
it other than
So-
recreation.
it actually, but it's probably a higher level of protection as a town forest.
yeah,
If we,
how many
Cross my
acres?
mind.
Yeah, I don't think we even know the exact number. But it would prevent us having to essentially pay fines.
I saw what you had in the minutes, but back when you discussed it, it made perfect sense to me. It's even a small amount,
Yeah, it's not large.
because you've already used the Prindle. It wasn't big enough or something.
No, the Prindle lot
That's
is not
for deer
primary
winter.
agricultural soil.
That's
That's
deer
a
winter
deer.
irrigation.
Oh,
Here,
there,
winter
yeah.
yards.
I have to switch hats to talk about that.
Does the board have any more questions? Are you looking for us to connect you with the residents on Weston Road?
There's not the residents, we understand that there's a plan for the flood resiliency that's going to be taken, there's a map that's going to be taking a lot of the land for the flood control, and we'd
I
like
don't
to
even
work
know.
with those people and be a part of it, as opposed to,
Who are they?
well, we don't know.
Yes, I don't know, who are the Western resiliency people? I have no idea.
Wescom Resiliency Initiative folks.
Folks, yeah,
And what is it? What is the Western resiliency?
Oh, you don't
initiative?
know?
No, I don't know anything about it.
I don't know either. But is this like the FEMA long-term flood recovery plan?
Oh, this is, I see what you're saying. I think this is the HMGP project that we're putting in for the skate park. So we're doing flood benching, on the. I guess would be the east side of the road, and then using a culvert to access the west side of the road. So the pollinator garden may be removed and lowered, is that what you're talking about?
yeah,
It would be removed, yes.
Yeah.
The steep slope of the bank is where it is now.
This came up with the skate park improve project that went out. It's-
I think they were just, the Conservation Commission is asking me part of the conversation, so they don't move the pollinator garden boldly. Maybe it gets.
well, we want to be a part of the discussion, because among other things, we have some expertise about what might work and not, and all.
And this is the 10 acres that the town was, used to be part of Western Trailer Park.
It's across the road from the skate park, it's that whole parcel.
And the engineer who's working for LCPC is really leading this project. Stantec is the engineer, they did a benefit cost analysis based on how to maximize that parcel, which included, there's a piece of Ken Harvey's land and the skate park's land that would be lower, I believe, 7 feet, to take a 2-year storm. And then, and I think that's where the pollinator garden is now. And so in the future, that might not be the best spot for a pollinator garden if it's, but I think this. It is a critical project. As we lower Holmes Meadow, it's gonna shoot water at a 45-degree angle directly into that area, which means having floodwater storage there it's going to protect the village. So it is a critical project. It was identified in that 2019 study as a critical parcel to be flood bench for this reason.
We also have bat boxes on that site. Those are pretty easy to move, but again,
You know, this is so far in the beginning of the process, there's gonna be a lot more permitting through A&R, which would deal with bats, turtles, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
We're pretty sure we'll be able to find place where we can put in gardens, the pollinator gardens and all, but we need to make sure that we're able to do it.
Yeah, and this project is, I think, way ahead, you know. Like, there's no money to do this yet, you know, this is just the preliminary planning for a project that might happen in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, but. Been identified as a critical parcel, they've now done a benefit cost analysis, and this, in order to do a BCA, you have to do some preliminary guesswork, man. And so it's not finalized in any means, but.
But it would be helpful if we, as it's progressing, if we can see what they have in mind so that we can work around it and work with them.
You know, once it's selected to move forward, I think, you know, the board would be the first person to know, and right now it's just been, we've just received money from the benefit cost analysis. That's the first step of this scoping study.
And the good news is that the Conservation Commission received $500 from the Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions for this project. So part of which is
For moving the pollinator garden?
for the pollinator garden. But the bulk of the money is for working with the skate park to put a pollinator garden sign with the skate park and the community garden here. So it's a collaboration with them for getting a nice sign done.
I'd like to go back and visit the Vermont lot with the survey. If this is the Johnson Conservation Commission, but why is the town administrator getting tied up trying to look for a surveyor?
This is just a quick side, I mean. I'm really fast at title searches, and I knew that Lois mentioned there was an issue, and so I just. Pulled up the first 2 deeds and I said, hey, look, here's an issue. I bet it took me less than 20 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, that's just something I used to do a lot in my previous career that I just like to do.
well, you know as well as I do, Tom, your plate is pretty full. Getting sidetracked by other stuff sometimes is not conducive to getting other things done the board is looking for.
That's fair.
But from our side, the Conservation Commission doesn't have very much money. And
Right, I
so if the
understand.
survey is gonna be
I
done,
understand
we
that.
have to go through the town.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing you, but I do think sometimes that, sometimes people get off on a tangent and not taking care of other things that the board would like looked into other than the next thing that pops up from somebody's commission or some group of people. You follow me on
Yeah.
that one?
I do follow that, but I don't think Conservation Commission has the right to get in touch with the surveyor you were talking about, Tom, who might work a deal.
I'm not saying work a deal, maybe you could find one and then bring it to the board or something, but. I don't think it's the the administrator's responsibility to find a surveyor for that. I mean, I'm just one board member. Anybody else can chime in here too.
It's not what he's doing.
Okay.
I'll be happy to. Fill you in.
Okay.
Peter's been in touch from, because he's on the Conservation Commission, he's a great liaison. And so he had opportunity to talk to surveyors, so he did. Which was good.
And it is a piece of town property, I mean, the Conservation Commission has generously for years kind of managed the property on behalf of the town, but it is town property.
Okay. I'm just thinking at the bigger picture, because we got a lot of other things that are,
Always irons in the fire.
a lot of irons in the fire. And I don't wanna discount one person over another, but they are processes and they are projects and stuff that we're involved with that are actually more important than others.
But one of the other pieces that I had put in the report is that we're looking to expand our conservation reserve fund. And, you know, who knows what might happen with that, but
I actually had a question about that. Maybe because I just couldn't mull it over on my head, but specifically you said, you know, there's a desire to grow the reserve fund, which would earn, money from sales or donations, as well as small amount of town appropriations. You say $5,000 to spend on beer park, accessibility care. You then say this project needs a dedicated individual at town. Which project are you talking about? Is it like managed
Oh,
reserve
the
fund?
Conservation Reserve Fund, and I'm thinking, you know, from the Conservation Commission, we need to have somebody who's,
Okay, so that's not.
you know,
a
when
request from-
you're making next appointments, should you be that. Something to keep in mind that it doesn't just happen. But the $5,000 that went to the Beard Park was a donation that was specified for that purpose.
Mhm.
If we could get more of those, it would be terrific.
Yeah, I'll just offer a quick thought on reserve funds, if when we're in our next budget process, I think you've got a line item in your,
We do,
yeah,
yeah,
so if you are interested in seeking town contributions into the reserve fund, that would be the place to put that in the
But you
municipal budget. I mean, I think it's great if you can get people to donate up to $5,000 for a project. But, you know, that's not always possible. I know other conservation commissions have certainly used monies in their reserve funds to leverage other grant funds.
Right.
Or conservation easements, or, you know, all kinds of different things. So,
yeah, we do have that line item.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, this year it was cut in half.
well,
But you-
yeah, well, I think you guys have always been pretty conservative in what you propose, but, I would certainly entertain it, and if we get to a point where we're at a budget and there's a question, I personally would love to have you guys come in and justify it,
Okay,
but that's just me.
we're happy to.
All
answer
individuals
questions.
here.
Are there any further questions from the board?
You mentioned that the land management review form wasn't on the website.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I can't find it either. Could you send it to me and I'll put it on the new website, because that's gonna be launching soon.
Sure.
Yeah,
Further questions?
You know what it is, right?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Hearing no further questions, no further comments?
No, just
Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you.
thanks for your support.
Future committee, what was the select board looking for? Tom, your recommendation? Bradley,
We've done tree board, we've done conservation, we did, beautification, we did rail trail, we've done that. They have a lot of stuff coming up.
We're at the point where we're recycling.
we were recycling at the beginning of this year, yeah.
Be nice to be at 12 committee, wouldn't it?
Has it been a while since we heard from Tuesday Night Live?
Oh, this is a great time to do that too.
Yeah.
Oh, that might be a really good idea, yeah.
They paired up last time, TNL bread oven. But TNL's just stuff going on, so maybe,
And they're gonna be in different locations too, so
Mhm.
maybe it would be good to. I don't care, I mean, if they wanna. Gang up and come in at the same time, that's.
there you go, TNL it is, bread oven if they're willing to piggyback on each other. Good with that? Both of them, for our two. Committees that never received town funds. Should be quick.
They're awesome.
Where some big committees. Alright, next up, I shoehorned these in real quick. Under additions is where I placed them. The village has a spare cell phone that I believe their former supervisor used. And they do continue to pay for that monthly. I wasn't sure if the ask was for us to pay for half or for half of it, Mary. Is the board interested in it? If they are, Tom's gotta go work with the village on an agreement. We're not signing anything tonight. I think, so it's for emergency management. I see value in having a dedicated phone. After. You know, the dedicated phone was the office, and then that flooded in 2023. 2024 was a little bit of a different event. We're kind of out monitoring more and not so much at the helm, so the cell phone's handy. And I don't want. The emergency management line tied to my cell phone. Selfishly, I don't want it, but the second, you know, if I was in a car accident. And couldn't show up. The number on the LEM, which the state has. Logged would be my cell phone. How's the board feel about paying for half of the cell phone for emergency management purposes, is the question.
So, is this a cell phone that's already in existence?
Yes,
The village owns it
Okay,
and is paying for the monthly.
it's about $70 a month.
and who holds on to it?
It's
If
in
we-
the office right now.
We could probably ask for Rosemary to hold on to it. Being the neutral.
We keep it charged, but very rarely, unless there's an emergency, it gets used.
I wonder if it can like connect to other phones, cause like, what if we're not by it? And it's an emergency.
If it's an emergency, we're probably already geared up and somebody has mentioned it. By the time that happens. But this is just a high level, is the board willing to pay or not? If it's not, the village is gonna $70 a
It's
month.
about $70 a month.
Do they get used in 23?
No,
Yes.
but in 24, actually, it did get used in 23. But not. Right off the bat, because we had forwarded. The town office phone to my cell phone until
If I got too much.
Ken, yeah, Ken had came up and said that they had that phone. And it got shifted around.
Well, the village is kind of dominating the town's car charger. I think it should be an even trade. Because we kind of subsidize them by. Taking care of their car charger for them, which they could do is just take care of their emergency phone. It's a trade.
How do other board members feel? All joking aside, Tom's needs some direction to either say the board is not willing to pay for half, or the board is willing to pay for half. We need to agree.
So if in an emergency, would you have the phone?
Yeah, I did in 24.
Okay, for village and town.
It's not for village and town, it's the phone that we forwarded the office phone in here to.
I think the answer, Adrian, all village emergencies or town emergencies through Abby.
Mm.
So.
Any, like the village does not have an emergency management plan, they're not required to have one by state statute.
Okay,
Because they're not an independent municipality, they're incorporated, is that why?
They're an incorporated village within
The
the
town.
town.
You have to make a motion that we split the cost of the cell phone with the village.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Can we amend that to have Tom just work up an agreement?
Yes.
Alright, is that friendly? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Alright.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Hey,
The ayes have it. The other one is, you know, the pre-7 that added in earlier. Maybe you could help me with this, Adrian. I believe that the rail trail committee, I know you're not on the committee, but you're friendly with the people there.
Mhm.
I believe the rail trail committee is trying to get e-bike charging stations and a sign put in
Yeah.
at the Rosemary Oliver Village Green.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, the request is for the town to sign an agreement, I believe, for maintenance. Once those are in, they're being put in with grant funds, and the way I see it, the town would own it. And we always pay for maintenance on things that we own, but I think the village also needs sizable things from the rail trail committee, but
officially appointed.
they haven't officially approved it, but
I thought the rail trail committee had moved away from putting something on the village green. Kind of for those reasons, have they revisited that? Or-
I know they met with the Masonic. They met with the organized, I think it's board of the Masonic Temple, and asked to put a sign on their property.
do you know much?
They didn't meet with them as an option, but ideally, they would like it on the village. For Rosemary Village Green, so that the bikers like. You know, hang out there instead of picnic tables, and they would look at the Matterhorn easily there than. By the Masonic Temple, so. Ideally, they would like it on the green. So, but they were thinking that they would go back to the village. And say that we would maintain the e-bikes and the signs, and that would sweeten the pot for them to say yes to it. So I think that was their hope.
Okay, so maybe I misrepresented this from the start, but that was well worded.
And we would be responsible for,
Like painting it, like painting the e-bikes if they get.
well, in addition to that, we'd be responsible for the electricity portion of it. Right?
I would have to assume, but I don't know if that would be. Um. School Street Powerhouse Covered Bridge, they don't have a meter socket on that, but we have an agreement with them for a. Eric. Onward,
There is a meter on the village green, I mean, there's power to run on the village green.
but what, we need our own meter, or do we just? Because isn't there? Food trucks that plug in?
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know exactly how, but I don't know if the lake station, charging stations have self metering to.
They might, I don't know the answer to that though.
Are they gonna be free or paid for?
Free. Yeah, it's really inexpensive e-bike charging stations, it's like. A couple of pennies for. Bike for like, really minuscule. But it is something we would need to keep track of, so that's a good question.
So we don't have. Do we have a formal request? Before us either from the rail trail committee or the village?
The formal request. Was Kim Dunkley calling me on Friday night and asking if the town was willing to. Maintain. The e-bike charging station at the village green, and. As far as I know, it's gonna be town property. Because we're gonna receive it with a grant, the e-bike charging station will be town property sitting on. Village lot, but. Is there any angst about maintaining something that we get a grant for?
I got a question about. How long does your bike stay charge up?
6 or 7 hours if it's
Yeah,
low charge.
same deal with me. So, somebody's gonna sit there for 6 or 7 hours? Charge their bikes up?
You're asking how long does it charge or how?
How long does it take to charge up a bike?
Yours takes 6 or 7 hours to charge?
Yeah, but mine's a 3 amp charger, and I just looked it up because I was hoping I could find something that was a quicker charge.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently you can go up to like 5 amps, but that doesn't cut the time in half,
Mm-hmm.
not even close. To half. And apparently the NiCad cell batteries cannot accept like a rapid charge, like a car can. You know, you just can't charge them any faster than certain number of amps. Or you actually, you know.
We can talk about the pace of charging, but
Well, my point is that if it takes so long to charge, what good is it? I guess that's my point.
Filling up the tank, popping it off.
Well, no, you can't really top it off a little bit. If you're gonna go on a trip, you're gonna take a separate battery with you anyway. You're gonna carry an extra battery.
You probably are, but I think the hope is that someone would plug their charger in and go have
I get
a
it.
meal or something, so they
I get
might
it.
be there. A couple.
Well, you can wish in one hand, crap in the other too.
okay, is the board going to accept the maintenance on something or receive through grant fund? Or a car charging station or not?
Yeah, I am.
Peter,
Yes.
okay. I don't even know if we need a formal motion, they just asked us to say,
It'll be the same deal as this charger out here.
like.
The town accepted $7,500, whatever, put that albatross in out there. What good is it done? It's broken, you can only charge half of
Here's
the
Kevin.
vehicle on it. I don't, it's all typical boondoggle, as
Yeah,
far as I'm concerned, with grants.
so that's a no.
I don't care if it has the potential to bring bikers into town. I kind of agree with Mike. I don't think it's gonna be a huge attractant to getting bikers downtown, but if it does, great.
We'll maintain it or from future select board can remove it if it seems whatever.
There you go.
This select board doesn't want to remove the one we got.
That
What are you gonna do?
answers your question, correct, Kim?
I have no idea, because I was the interim and money coming
You
down.
don't know what your question was, do you?
I think in order for the rail trail committee to proceed, my understanding is they need you guys to say, yes,
The majority of us just said that we would accept the maintenance.
beautiful. And the other piece that isn't getting kind of brought forward is that having something in the town where someone can walk out of Johnson or Butternut and see a sign that actually has information that is inclusive of the rail trail is a way that they can come back to Johnson and say, oh, look, there's a swimming pool here. Oh, look, there's a rail trail. We could come back and do a family rail trail trip.
Mhm.
So it's extending the economy for our town, besides just pulling bikers in and giving them more information. It's giving people who are visiting the town more information about what their possibilities are.
Thank you very much, Kim.
Yes, thank you for,
We were actually talking about the bike charger. But I do like what you're talking about, though. I mean, I agree with that.
yeah.
I agree with what you're talking about, the sign. and
We
everything.
should have had a cost for you. I haven't been able to figure out where to find that out, but it sounded like the electricity is extremely minimal.
Do you know if the chargers keep track of like how much?
I would
They-
love to know that.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe at the next meeting.
Yeah, so I actually thought there was few people here that had researched that. My understanding was, I was just getting Evan to put it on the agenda and that there would be people here to expound upon the costs and
Yeah.
electricity. Sorry.
You could only.
Conservation Commission, how did you?
Yeah, it has to be in Monday before the meeting.
On the maintenance question, I remember Doug saying, so I'm having a flashback.
So I was wondering.
Doug said the company that they were trying to get the charger from
We-
didn't have the capacity to
That's
do
why I was-
maintenance. And that was one of the reasons
Thank you
why
for getting it.
they kind of abandoned
I think they started looking at different types though.
it. Okay.
I think there was they shifted to a different type of e-bike charging station. Yeah, I don't know if it's different, but like,
But I don't get it. A lot of e-bikes have their own different charging system. All you have to do is have electricity for the charger. They didn't bring a charger with them to match their batteries.
Just plug it in. Yeah.
That's what needs to be done.
Like when you go on long trips, you bring your charger with
Okay,
you.
I feel like we're getting a little bit beyond
Too bad.
here. I think we need to get back to the meeting. Next up is the Community Economic Development Specialist report for state. Randall is on the call here and going through it item by item, maybe attacking a little different, Randall. Does the board have any questions about the industrial park? I believe Randall's been really concise with where NEPA is. And that the original goal for full notice to proceed is still in September. There's a couple other acronyms that have been shifted. But is there any questions about that from the board? The Johnson Visioning Project. Randall quote funding gap there. There's no action for us, but thank you for taking care of that. Recreational economy, rural communities for rural communities. That's the one that we're waiting for early summer, right, Randall?
Yep, that's correct.
Can you speak, Randall?
Yeah, did you not hear me?
Can't hear you.
Well, I don't know.
Can we turn the volume
I'm
on?
not muted.
Are
Aha,
you muted on your mic on your computer, Randall?
nope. Nope. I mean, I can hear you all, but you can't hear me at all.
Hey, wrong speaker.
Aha,
I'm sorry about that.
that's quite okay. The answer was yes.
There's a lot of buildup. Randall, can you hear me now? Moving down, I do believe that Duncan had a question on the RFP process for timing for the Welcome Center. Can you remind me what that comment was?
Yeah.
And I remember what the question was. And like, yeah, I have not received any responses to the RFP. The way it was structured was questions and concerns about the RFP to me, the actual RFP to Tom. Again, we had set a deadline earlier that wasn't met, and Tom made a very helpful suggestion to Doug to like, hey, if you have someone in mind, go out there and, cajole them into, awareness that this thing is out there. Doug said he would do so, and I guess that person did not submit. So I think we need to extend again, and the rail trail committee can, try to track someone down.
I would make a formal motion, I guess, to extend the RFP deadline to, what should we use, Tom, 4 o'clock, June 2nd, before our next board meeting?
Texting two stonemasons right now. Could we do 4 o'clock on the 30th, so that way I can get it to you guys over the weekend?
Okay, so my motion would be to extend the RFP deadline, filing deadline to May 30th, no later than 4 o'clock.
Motion a second for the discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. That worked out. Are there any other questions or comments from the board, for the remainder of Randall's report? I did not get a chance to look at the updated FEMA long-term recovery plan, so I'm woefully, I looked at the first draft, but I haven't looked at the updated one. Anything else from the board?
I'm just gonna put in a pitch, and Randall, you can, give me the right date on this, but there is going to be a local concerns meeting on the rail trail connector piece. Is it VHB? Is that the contractor on that?
Yes. Yep. Thursday, May 22nd in the municipal building at 6 p.m.
Okay,
That is right on this report.
yeah, and Doug is encouraging select board members to attend that.
But if 3 of us attend and we make decisions,
We
Oh,
can't,
bad.
we can attend but not make any decisions.
I was planning on attending.
It's gonna be publicly warned anyway, like,
but not as a select board meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just gotta be careful, so.
we can't sit with each other.
Okay. Do you have anything extra to add, Randall?
No, well, no, just other little thing about the FEMA community assistance piece. I mentioned this resource document. My understanding is it's like an incredibly long document that will have a huge compilation of relevant funding sources. So it's going to be, it was kind of, Johnson's playing a kind of a nice role in that their inspiration was to generate it relative to our document for us, but I think FEMA's intention is to have it be a standing document to distribute to communities all throughout Vermont, but we were sort of the impetus for that, so that's kind of cool. But that's it.
Anything else from the board? Our next item is industrial park next steps, but Randall's report is very clear on where things stand, what the next steps are. So is there anything the board has questions for there? Do you have any concerns? I guess Momley got their suggested edits back to Clark Group, correct? And we're awaiting Clark Group's final review.
No, they have not. There was scheduling issues on Mumley's part, so that document is due to be reviewed most likely Wednesday, I suppose. The again, it's just this sort of unpredictable scenario where Mumley does work and then gets sent off for these folks to review, and you can't really predict what the response is going to be. The first one was the biggest one that that was a big learning curve, and like I said, the Clark Group provided a example from another community, which I think helped inform Mumley's resubmission. But now we're talking about the resubmitted submission. So the good news is that Mumley is working at the same time as on the next chapter, that they're doing the revisions on the current chapter. So they're not losing as much time because they're working on both. One's essentially editing and one's writing. So.
Well, thank you very much. It does look like they missed the deadline for resubmission. I guess the requested one.
Yeah, they had scheduling issues on their end, so they're hoping to get it out the door. I believe tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did send an email out today, I guess. But VHB will not be using a traffic counting study from LCPC, correct?
Right. Yeah. No, VHB is just going to do it, and VHB has already been in contact about the traffic study. They sent an email to Tom and me, and we're they're moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
No further questions. We're gonna get into School Street, and we do have item number 14, if you're willing to stick around for a little bit, Randall. Hopefully we'll get there as quickly as possible.
We'll start us off on number 9 with questions.
School Street traffic, what's your question?
The question is, can you school me, as unintended, in how to go about getting an estimate for speed tables. And if I would be willing to go and get that information and then perhaps we know what we're turning down or accepting.
I didn't hear the entirety of your question.
Speed table.
Speed tables.
Yeah,
Cost
I
of
mean,
speed
Speed bumps.
I'm wondering, how I could go about getting estimates of the cost of speed tables, not bumps.
Well, I would say, call an asphalt company,
Mhm.
Pikes, Wickham's, Grays.
So I think. Have you visited any towns that have speech tables like?
Jericho's got several of them on.
Yeah.
Scum.
How about this, how about this question? Does this board even want speed tables? I don't,
I think they're quite effective, actually.
just a general,
Anywhere I've seen them.
would you be interested in numbers?
I would be interested in numbers, absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
you, Adrian?
I'm talking about those like semi-permanent ones, but not the big table ones.
Pretty much have to take those other ones away and
Okay,
they get destroyed.
yeah. I'm in favor of those, but not the big ones, because I'm worried about them not being maintained and like crumbling real fast with like our winters. That's my concern. But if you tell me maintenance is cheap and that we'll actually have a system where we keep up on it, my opinion could change.
I'm told Jericho's Department of Public Works.
Okay.
You just say who you use and then.
Is that all we get on School Street? Common or right up in the back there?
Yeah, and I think Tom's idea of the stop signs has some potential. But I think they're dependent for the real problem areas and problem times, dependent on law enforcement that will not be there. And the speed tables will force people to slow down, whether there's law enforcement or not. So I'd like to hold off on that. And maybe we can take a closer look also at those intersections I went out today, and some of them don't line up quite very well for the three-way idea. But maybe I can get some information on the speed tables. We can take a look more at the stop signs and bring it back again and not spend any more time on it tonight.
We could table it.
We could table.
No,
Hey,
part intended.
I'd like to discuss it a little bit more, seeing it's on the agendas.
We certainly can.
Okay.
You go first. I got something.
Well, Tom mentions he personally feels that law enforcement is not effective. I disagree with that. We all remember years ago, a local deputy always used to park at the bottom of Clay Hill. He used to pinch a lot of people going down through there. People got the idea that Blaine was there, people slowed down. Everybody talks about Danville. Anybody that knows anything about Danville, when you get to Danville, you make sure you're going 25 miles an hour. Because they religiously enforce their speed limit in Danville. If we had a number of tickets, real tickets, no warnings, and people got the book thrown at them for speeding or racing down School Street, the word would get out. I really believe it.
And it's hard to predict when they need to be there, and they're stretched pretty thin. It doesn't sound like they can.
Well, they probably weren't any thinner than they were 20 years ago. And we pay a tremendous amount of our budget for the sheriff's department and with the dispatch. We're talking about $600,000 a year. And we need some protection, and we need a cop down there monitoring that area. A couple hours a day for a while to see if he can pinch somebody. And whether they have the material or the manpower or not is, they need to step up to the plate. Because we're paying a lot of money for police protection. And the big excuse was, years ago, oh, the college, we got 1,500 kids up there. We need to have this, we need to have that. Last I knew, there were like 250 students up there.
They're not the problem. not most of the problem.
Well, I understand that, but that was the excuse for the amount of money that we had to pay for protection. So, I mean, we got a sixth of the amount of people that used to be up there, so they could dedicate more time to law enforcement as far as speeding stuff. Because they have less problem with college kids, because there's none of them up there. So it gets annoying after a while, it really does.
What can we do then?
Just tell them. We need some cops on School Street.
If we make a specific request
To the sheriff's
to
department.
the sheriff's department, they can target School Street. Yeah, I mean, they've done it in the past with Clay Hill and Railroad Street. In School Street, so I think I agree with that, we should make that request. I also think that there was an offer at one point to get the speed card down there, right?
Yeah, but that was this spring, it just hadn't happened. They're planning on it. They got a grant this spring to get an additional one to allow each town to have their own. Whether or not they did that.
Yeah. I think we should make a formal request to get the speed card set up on School Street. And I noticed the sign came down. Just coming to town, is the plan to perhaps get that fixed and put it up at School Street somewhere?
Did they take, I guess, Jason took it down and then I brought it to 802 Electric, I followed them. 802 Electric works on it, but. They can't put it up and take it down, so it's kind of a. I'll follow up with them and make sure.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think those signs are pretty effective and we may need more of them. I personally, I don't like the idea of putting a stop sign at, Hill, whatever it is, Hill Drive or Hill Road. George Hill Drive. I just don't like, I would rather try the intersection of College Hill and School Street. And some of the other techniques before adding a stop sign there. But that's just me.
So I have two things. One is. I had emailed you a while back about the sheriff's department monthly reports. You said they're on your desk, are they not emailing those?
No, they just come in the mail, actually 3 months on my desk, but one came
Today?
today.
I think we need to start receiving those. Will at least give us data talking about. Several things, a lot of things go back to enforcement. Actually having the data in your hand of how many warnings were written and how many tickets were written really takes our feelings right out of it, but we don't have that information, so.
We used to always have it every single
Who gets the mail?
month, every month.
Yeah, every month, never missed it.
Rosemary, who gets the mail?
I don't,
Susan?
I give it to you.
Yeah, I find it like on my chair and I set it aside. I'm just trying to think about how can we make it more efficient so that you guys actually get it rather than. If I'm the weak link, it's not working. You can tell me to do it, but I'm not doing it. Maybe it'd be better if when you get the mail, could I ask Susie to just, hey, could you just open it and scan it real quick? I mean, if it's in my email, I'm gonna see it, no matter where I'm working, I see every email that comes through. I'm just trying to solve the problem rather than, like, I'm not doing it now, so you keep hoping it's gonna change, it's probably not. But
not even if we ask for it to change.
we can try.
That's not a good answer.
It's not a great answer, no.
No, it's not at all.
And do the reports have this kind of information?
It's
Not the exact streets, but it'll tell you the number of tickets written. At
Number of
10 to
warnings.
20 over and 20 to 30 over, and number of warnings and number of. Violations of other ordinances. Driving without licenses, it doesn't give you names, but
Arrest and breaking and enter, used to be everything.
so. If. You talk to Susan and she's okay with doing it. I would say she can just email the board, there's no point in. Sending it for it to be forwarded. The other thing. Is, Duncan had sent a rather lengthy email. On the 24th of April. About a. Village. streetscape improvement project. But it mentioned. Something, I'm trying to. You're gonna have to go back and read it. There was some talk about, in that email about
Oh, really?
narrowing the entrance to School Street because it's so wide and that would slow traffic down. But I. Haven't seen that study, I'm not sure if anybody has gotten a chance to look for it. Maybe there are answers already to. I'm gonna say the board's problems. In that study. Is anybody looking for it?
I will take it upon myself to look for it.
It was in Duncan, you emailed that report.
No, I emailed
Email.
my
reference.
recollection of it, which, we're interested.
Do you know what date, what date that report was done?
He said approximately 10 years ago.
It was probably 2013 or 14, maybe,
Layer work on that project.
she did. She did,
Okay.
14 or 15.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much her stuff is on.
It's gotta be something in an email.
And I
Was there,
believe the engineering firm was Otter Creek on that one. So they may still have, I suggested that the plans might have survived the flood in the vault, but I don't know, it depends on where they were, obviously.
if not, Otter Creek would have filed.
Maybe.
You mentioned engineers, so that means the town spent money on it already.
No, it's the
Yeah,
village.
the village.
Village.
It was a village grant.
Okay.
And it was one of those, what did they call them, streetscape improvement projects, I think is what the grant name was. Do you remember, Harry?
Traffic calming. Traffic calming. It was all part of the Main Street reconstruction project.
No,
On
this was
School
separate.
Street?
This was School Street. It was separate.
Oh,
All
It
right,
was a separate grant.
without going too far into the weeds. You sent that email out on the 24th of April. I think somebody should look for it, or call Otter Creek and ask if we could get it. If it's useless. Doesn't seem like 10 minutes was worth of waste.
I'll do it.
You're passionate about things, Peter.
I'll do it.
That's all I had. Does anybody else have any?
Well, you said School Street was his passion anyway, so.
I told him I was gonna say the board. Did you have anything to add?
No, I pretty much made my recommendations the first or second time we talked about this. I still think narrowing effects would be the best tactic in accomplishing slowing down traffic, so planting trees, putting lines on the road where parking is, and trees do take a while, but I think it's a good investment, and it's also an investment in like flood resiliency, because more planting we invest in, more water is gonna absorb, so like no brainer to me, but. So doing that and like adding stop signs, I think we could approach this in a multi-faceted way instead of just like one solution.
I agree, I agree.
You'd have to have an awful lot of trees.
I'm fine with multifaceted. And I'm. Fine with talking about trees, but in the email. That an old man sent from his recollection.
There's no right away.
The south side of the street is not even in the town highway right away, and there has to be some sort of. Easement or whatever already, so keeping trees there. It's not even in a right away,
On the south side.
on the
south
south side of the
side.
street. All of that to say. Let's get planted.
Mhm.
And if it's not worth crap, we'll ignore it, but.
Okay.
We haven't looked at it.
I'll get it.
Well, some of the trees, we were gonna get the property owners, permission to do. So if the tree board came back with the permission of property owners, would that maybe be
Maybe,
something to look at?
I would like to see that plan. I think there's value in it.
Okay, I would like to see it.
And Peter's gonna investigate numbers for street tables and maintenance, right? Adrian, get that pretty clear. Maintenance.
I'd like to see police presence 1 or 2 days, 1 or 2 hours a day for 7 days. Twice, for 2 weeks.
Would you like to call the sheriff's department or would you like me to?
We got it down for a part of School Street and to do, the speed car. And I'll say 1 to 2 hours for 7 days a week.
Twice, 2 weeks. I'd like to see 2 weeks right there, see if they can nail somebody.
I'm not hearing any objections from the board here, so I'm just saying we're good with that. Are we moving on from School Street?
Yeah,
Ah,
and on the next item. I would be happy to take the 2 ordinances that were in our packet. And the samples that Adrian garnered from other towns and put together a draft.
to be clear. This came up because Duncan had mentioned. Our speed limit ordinance does not have fines, right? And I signed it.
Well, it's not,
In my
it's not
first year.
set up under the, doesn't have the waiver penalties, it's not set up under the municipal.
And the only reason that the stop sign ordinance is in there is because, Tom and I were talking, and I was like. Was it speed limits or stop signs, or Tom's like, let's just think about both, you
If
know?
you look at this stop signs, the little Article 4 could be updated.
There are more than 4 stop signs in town.
Correct.
No,
Yeah,
there's not.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be.
But, one of the things that we had found out from recent towing in the village is if our ordinance doesn't meet the requirement by statute and we tell the law enforcement to take action, we're liable for the action that they take if our ordinance doesn't match statute. And so if we don't have a stop sign listed on our ordinance, but then when somebody runs through that stop sign, they can't get a ticket. But say they go to court because the cop gave them a ticket, we might be responsible for their loss if you go to court. And so that's why it's just important to just make sure we're up to date.
All of this morphed a little bit from your original request. About fines and waiver fees. But. The question. As far as I can tell, has morphed into. Can we do one traffic ordinance? Is the board comfortable with that?
But I sure,
I think you had already even said you were right, so you were kind of ahead of me for sure.
that works.
Not that I set the bar there.
It's a good idea.
Nobody's saying no.
I think
You good with that? You seem like you're not.
I think it's a big ask.
It's
I
you.
think it's a big project, and if somebody wants to do it, knock yourself out. But there's the kind of complexity that you're talking about with traffic ordinances versus a straight speed limit ordinance and a stop sign ordinance. There's a pretty large gap between simply updating those 2 items and doing a comprehensive traffic ordinance. And I think we need it. We've talked about it for years. Just haven't had the time to do it. But we've got a board member that wants to do it.
maybe initially we update those 2 pieces. And work on the overall comprehensive thing. But just update those 2 first.
I think that's probably a reasonable approach.
I bet you some other town has already done it and just purloined it or a name on it.
Well, the problem is, it's gotta be specific.
Well, I understand that, but some of the general wording.
And the other piece that's a little more difficult is the village has ordinances related to parking and. Wintertime parking, and we've got an incorporated village within the town, so I guess we should be sensitive to. Technically, the town owns and controls the roads and rights of way, so we technically have the legal authority to impose limits, but. It's probably worth recognizing that the village has done that at one point in time, and they have, their ordinances go back to the time when. To describe, I forget what it was, you know, spitting tobacco on the sidewalks or things like that. So, you know, their ordinances could certainly, you know, stand the dusting off and an update, but I guess if we do it. You know, perhaps we should have a conversation with the trustees about, you know, we're thinking of doing this and, you know, might supersede your ordinances.
Can we specify what specifically, what kind of tobacco, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, they even talked about, I think, coasters, not being able to coast on the sidewalks.
Huh.
So, you know, we're going back a few years,
You see the electric ones go up down the sidewalk.
yeah.
So if we did one, we should include village streets or?
They're all ours.
They're all technically, you know, owned and controlled, you know, the town owns and controls the rights of way. And even above and beyond that, for example, the town imposed, you know, form-based code within the village, and we were told legally the town had the legal authority to make ordinances which apply to the village, which is an incorporated village within the greater town of Johnson. And I think that caused some bad feeling. When that was done. You know, the village is empowered under their charter to enact ordinances also, so technically the village could have established their own ordinance, which might have been in contradiction to what the town had.
The speed limit ordinance in the village says school streets 20 miles an hour. And
Yes.
the town says it's 25.
Which is in conflict with the towns.
And it's
Doesn't
actually
the
a conflict
village-
with state statute as well.
Doesn't the village have an open container policy?
Yes,
And the town doesn't, but the town has Tuesday Night Live where people bring open containers into the village.
yeah, so there's kind of I guess I'm just saying we should be a little bit sensitive
Yeah.
to
That makes sense.
the politics in terms of, you know, who does what when.
Don't
Yeah.
just saying that we're half married with another entity and
Could they adopt our?
They certainly could, yeah, I don't see why they couldn't.
Encompassing.
so. High level, do we want to attract the changes to these ordinances directly and then at a joint meeting bring up? Traffic ordinance and see if they want to adopt a joint ordinance?
That's, I think it's really important to match.
Yeah.
Yes, it's critical that that match, I think. I mean, I would say if we're going to adopt an ordinance, we would say that this supersedes any other ordinances. And if the village wants to adopt our ordinance in its totality, then I think that certainly doesn't hurt it, but it probably is not necessary either. I mean, that might be a good question for Royal County.
You know what the name of that federal law is where a town can make a federal law supersedes a state, so a state can be more strict than federal law than the town, but the federal law, is that, you know, that's what I mean, so it's like federal, state, town. Is village underneath the town?
Yeah, technically, because they are an incorporated village within the town, and by the incorporation, they were given rights to do certain things, they were given rights to establish street lights, establish an electric department, have a fire department, have, you know, have build and tax sidewalks.
Catch basins or.
Yeah, catch basins, stormwater, storm drains, you know, things like that. So I think, you know, their ability to do things is fairly prescribed. By the charter that was issued in various times, beginning in 1894 up to the 1950s. But, you know, things like, again, if they were given authority to enact ordinances. And it wasn't really specific, so they enacted a bunch of ordinances, like, you know, parking bans, where you could park and not park. all of those things and. Technically, I think the town, because the town owns and controls the right of way, that the town. Can also enact their own ordinances, which would supersede those of the village.
I think going back to that, I wish I could name it, but I think they could be more strict than ours, but ours would be, they could not be more lenient.
Yes, and that's generally how it works, like we can enact an ordinance. But it must comply with state statute.
Right.
And, you know, the state can enact a law, but it can't be. More strict than. You know, federal law.
We need to move along so you don't run that steam.
All of that to say. Are we doing them two separate or one together?
Duncan thinks one together is two involved.
He just said it's a heavy lift. He didn't say don't do it.
Yeah, it's a heavy lift, and Peter's suggestion was, let's do the speed and the stop
I know.
sign, and then look at the rest of it.
I think we should do one on our own and then ask the village if they want to adopt it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Let's see what we come up with. And then,
Yeah, you guys gotta come back to us anyway, and we gotta go through the ordinance. Adoption process and all
That's a
that, so
wonderful process.
we'll have another.
Doesn't even look like it's all filled out.
sure,
If you guys. Brain Trust wants to work on it.
The traffic.
They can have it. You
The dynamic duo.
guys are traffic people. Okay, library relocation is next. What do you got? Tom has some stuff in the packet.
spoke with the architect this morning. They found some hiccups with the mechanical drawings, so we're hoping to have things ready to go out for bid this week or next, so be looking for that draft RFP. To get a, it could be for site work and for the addition.
Do you want a special meeting to approve the RFP? Does the board
Why
want a
doesn't
special
that
meeting?
surprise me?
No, I'm saying,
Pickups with the end of the year.
do we wanna,
I think it's not ready yet, so I think what I'll do is I'll just, when the draft comes out, I'll send it to you, and then if we want a special meeting, we can do a special meeting or.
okay,
But we're far, I mean, I don't, we thought we were gonna have a drawing by April 1st and. We're now meeting, so I think let's let the process run through. Bid sets are in from the architect and civil engineer, we're waiting on mechanical.
We've seen too many delays on.
I think this is appropriate at this point in time, I hope it is, because I didn't add it as special item. I would like. and I probably will do this in a motion. To. Make sure that we are not spending more. Than we have a grant for. In that case. If. The project exceeds the grant amount. We either need to scale back the scope of the work so that it fits within the budgeted amount, the grant amount. Or get the commitment from the library trustees that they will fundraise. The difference between the grant amount and the estimated cost. So I don't know the best way to how to put that in a motion, but I guess I'm looking for. A firm commitment that we spend no more than what the grant amount is. And if there is a difference that the library agrees to. Come up with a plan to meet the shortfall.
You just made the motion right there.
That's the motion.
Second,
motion and second further discussion. I have one. But go for it.
I think that's what the library agreed to at our last meeting, was exactly that, and I think it's fine to have a motion. But I think that's very reasonable.
Well, it was one. The chairperson of the trustees was there. Not the full board, so. I agree that she said. That's probably what we'll do, but.
I mean, your motion. As I heard it was. Library trustees will come up with a plan. costs above and beyond the grant amount.
Yes.
A plan or physically coming up with the money at the time that it's needed are two different things to me. I don't think that the town needs to finance this and then get paid back.
Yeah, so,
I mean, my plan could be like $400,000 short, so my plan is that we're going to raise that over the next 4 years. That could be their plan.
yes, let me be clear that I don't. My motion would be that the town does not spend more than the grant amount. If there is a difference between the final project cost and the grant amount, the library has to either agree to come up with a capital plan to cover the overage, or I thought about this the other day, and I don't particularly like this concept, but one of the things they could do is circulate a petition asking the voters to raise an additional X amount of dollars to come up with the difference between the plan. As I said, I don't really like that plan, but that's something that they certainly could do.
They have the legal right to do it.
You know, it would be up to the voters to decide whether or not they wanted to, you know, meet that coverage. But I guess there should, to your point, there should be a hard stop when the contractor reaches $1.68 million, or whatever it is, total project cost. The project is done.
Unless they have a checkbook.
The expectation is that there will be a capital plan to fundraise for anything over the amount of the grant. So to make that motion, it's been on the same story all along, and strategies are already in place for that plan. But until we get a number from a GC, there might not be a need for one, or there might be, but strategies are in place for fundraising if needed. So I think everyone's.
And that's great. We can all sit around the campfire and sing Kumbaya. I want a formal motion
Yeah.
indicating that
Very reasonable.
this is a plan.
I'm ready to second it when you make it.
Adrian's done, right?
Does your motion, mean if they find another grant and they need like a match from us, that we wouldn't give them a match? To get that grant?
I think that would be a different conversation.
Okay,
And that would be the plan, I guess, and then in which case they'd have to come back. If they had a grant and it required a 20% match, they'd have to come back to us, hey,
mhm.
right?
For the project that they're doing that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess, again, maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. But there's a $1.68 million grant out there right now
Mhm.
to relocate and add to the library. So I think once we hit 1.68 million, it's like a hard stop. You know, if that means they can't finish the inside of the addition until they get the additional funding. That means they can't finish the inside of the building until they get the additional funding.
So be it.
You want me to withdraw my second? Do you tidy that up a little bit, tighten that up?
I was gonna call it.
Well, the only thing, you know, I hope what I said to Evan's point clarified. that-
Well, that's what I thought you meant anyway.
Stuff.
To tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it is what I meant, it may not be exactly what I said.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Nay.
the ayes have it. How are we looking financially now that we're talking about numbers?
I think last I saw it was 509. Do you have a budget status?
Not since the one I sent the board last week. It hasn't changed.
So after that in concrete, we're a little over 700 grand out the door.
Yeah, I think we're gonna land around 800,000 to get it there on a new
That's
foundation.
pricey.
Well, the cost to replace it, where it stood was over 800,000, so we got it out of the floodplain and brought the whole town together for less money than it cost to repair it in place.
How much was it gonna be to repair, please?
Well, the 2017 number from the Stevens was over 400,000, and that was to lose the basement, add 3 feet of concrete. Pretty much had to do everything we did rip out the foundation, 4 new footers. Because the footers were sinking, was a problem, the back of the building was gonna fall off. So the cost to repair it in place, we never got a final number, but. Based on the inflation cost of this 2017 report, we were looking at over 800,000, so the cost to relocate it. We wouldn't have got the grant had we not relocated it. You know, that's like, that was getting it out of the floodplain and preventing shutdowns is why we got that. So not only did we save money to move it, we also got it out of the floodplain.
When we get to the bottom line of the whole thing, we'll know for sure.
Sounds like it was a wash, but if it got the grant for it. Anything else for the library?
Something else, yeah.
Policies, have we seen any money in? No. So. We will at some point.
Oh,
Yes.
did you figure out for sure whether, I think at one point, maybe last meeting you said. That we might not be eligible for admin expenses under that grant, is that,
We are not eligible for admin for our funds.
do we think that we're gonna get, you submitted something for the public works employees time, do we think that's an eligible reimbursement?
Yeah, we met with Heather, if we have to show that using our own. Trucking and using our own staff is less expensive than using an outside vendor. So we're getting costs from outside vendors to perform the same work that our town employees did. And it's just, they just don't want to make sure you're not double dipping, and so it's going to be significant, you know, it's less than half the cost to use our employees versus just subcontractor.
Okay. Can we get? At least if we're not getting reimbursement for admin time, can we at least get reports of it?
That came up, I mean, my time, you saw that in the executive session, I put it on the screen for you, number of hours spent on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know the other thing I was.
But as the project progresses, it'd be nice to know. There is already town funds going into it. I'm not gonna see that.
Well, I'm not gonna be terribly, me personally, I won't be terribly concerned about that adding to the 1.689 million. I guess I'm maybe alone in this, but I'm okay with spending and staff time doing that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it, it's just be nice to know.
I was approached by a citizen with an idea, and maybe it's probably totally out to lunch and probably too late anyway. But the question I was asked was, why don't they just, you hack the building up a little bit higher and put a, like, put a floor in there, which they could enter, and you'd have to have an elevator to get upstairs, but would that give you the total square footage that they're looking at? And I don't know. So I think,
You're not far off, and that was actually looked at in the very beginning. There's a couple of renditions of how to do it, right, and one was. The reason we didn't do that is we were worried about being below 100-year floodplain, right, because we'd have a basement, but because now the footing height, we should probably revisit that. If the bid comes back too high and we have to look at cost savings, I think that should be a first look. Another option was putting it back into the hill. So you had so the second floor was access from the top of, so that. All of those renditions will be reviewed if the bid for this, you put out your best, what you want first, right? Where you think, based on your estimates from the architect, you put your best guess out there. Okay, we have this much money, this is what we want to build, and if you're off, you look at second, third, fourth options, and that, I think that option is still a good one, it's not a bad idea.
yeah, I think as long as the base elevation of the first floor is above what they believe the floodplain might at some point in time be, it sort of takes away that concern about having that first floor below it.
Right, but aren't we at one day into
creating a foundation.
You still need the same, I mean, you still need the same. The footers are being poured this week, right, and they have to sit for a week. So what I'm gonna do is take your conversation now, and we're gonna talk with the architect this week anyways, and just say, hey. If we did this, can you make windows work with the beam pockets? I think we can make this. You can make anything, I mean, you still need a foundation under it, so.
This is going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, I
I
think it's.
don't know if changing the plan right now is really what we need, but
Yeah, well, like I said, it's
I can
probably
only
too
pay the
late.
architect what, 50 grand so far? They could redesign it for another 50 grand. Okay, we're ready to move on to the library? Will you let the library know of the motion tonight?
Yeah. For there, everyone's gonna be great with it, yeah.
Okay. Appointment policy? Does the board have any reservations about the appointment policy draft that Tom has presented?
We left beautification committee off the list of ones.
Again, this is very conceptual, right? The idea is to create clear direction to applicants, committees, and the select board. So we don't have less confusion, so I think it's very draft one, but.
Okay.
Yeah. More conceptual. If you like the way this looks, I'll put more time into it to make it more clear, and this is more here.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I know about conservation commission, don't we have a policy for members?
We have a policy for members?
Yeah, do you have a policy for your members?
For how we go about filling a vacancy.
Oh, we follow the book. We
Yeah.
follow pretty much this policy that's been on the books for a while.
Conservation Commission is advisory committee, we are a non-advisory committee, so I don't know if they really have
I
anything.
think conservation and planning have a different process, like, or at least planning does, because of statute, because it's,
Planning does, but conservation.
we don't.
Library,
The point I was just trying to make is like, if there's anything in your policy you might want in this one, because this will supersede theirs, right?
They follow this policy.
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the policy.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought they, in their policy, they had something about like if you don't attend a certain amount of meetings, did our original policy say that?
No, this is just for appointing.
Oh, okay.
We had that policy from the very first board that existed,
Oh, okay.
and we haven't actually followed it precisely when it comes to. They were very strict.
Okay.
So, and we have a job description, that kind of thing, but they're not policies.
Okay.
You asked for the flow of the concept. I'm just gonna ask the board. Tom's asking. This looks good and you want him to tidy it up. Or do we want, ask him to blow it away and come back with a different design. Right?
I'm good with it. I honestly don't think it's all that's really different from
I
the
mean,
original policy.
I think the select board's role,
Different font.
If it's gonna make his job easier to administer it,
When I first started, one of the things that I like to find the problem and I like to present a solution. And every time there's a vacancy on a committee, there's always this confusion of like, who posts it, where do you post it, how do you post it, how do you, I wanna resign, how do you resign, and I think if we just make it clean. Then it's the same every time for every committee and it's. That's what I
let's
would like
talk
to do.
about resignations.
Yeah, are you gonna add resignations?
We can do whatever you want. I mean,
That'd be
it's-
great.
Yeah, but making the process clear is what matters. That's what I would like to. You
I'm
wanna
fine,
clean it up or?
I'm fine with it too. Clean it up.
Me too.
Lois?
I would just make the recommendation that whatever you come up with, it gets added to the checklist that we talked about earlier in the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, everybody actually gets a copy of it.
Hopefully,
So I'm gonna send this out a draft before the next mid-June meeting, that way we can make any edits, and that will hopefully, like, have a hard, just let's make edits and then finalize it next June, yeah.
Second meeting in June.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it, send it out, if anybody wants corrections. we don't do it for the meeting.
You know how we have like a select board? Like email thing, like address?
Yeah.
Should we have a committee chair? Like, email thing? So you could just email all committee chairs at once?
Good group.
Okay, so let's go with that.
Might make
That would
it
be tech
easier.
group that would set it up anyways, we would probably pay them every time to add somebody and move it.
Maybe that's too much of a hassle, but if it made it easier, that'd be worth it.
We had Gmail set up, I could do it.
Yeah.
Okay, Legion Field planning and curb cut. I would like to shoehorn this conversation quick. Tom had emailed out, regardless of the plan. Sounded to me in the email like that Tom sent out, like the backstop should come down as wanted to come down by committees. Regardless of any locations.
Yeah. Scoreboard signs.
Isabel had asked if she could reach out to other committees and see if they wanted it. My request was for her to press pause. Until the board decided an open meeting. And my question for you, Tom. Or Isabel,
Donated.
oh, it was in the email, what's the liability on the town? Do we need to talk to our lawyers about a liability waiver? I think it's great, I would love to donate, I would love to not see it on landfill, it seems wasteful. But I don't think the select board is in the position to just give stuff away and potentially. Have liability if somebody gets hurt taking it down or putting it up somewhere else. Maybe I'm way overthinking this one.
I think the road crew could take it down, that's what they do, and then just have it aside, something just donate it as is, you just have a little.
There's reasons that other governments don't do this. I'm assuming it's liability. Also, don't, if somebody wants it for free, they should come take it down themselves, they don't need a road crew, come and do the work.
That. Yeah,
But does that put us in line, in a liability standpoint?
well, I don't know. Not a lawyer.
Me neither, that's why I asked if. Maybe VLCT had a liability waiver that they'd recommend or attorney.
So let's first be clear on the process of what you want to happen, and then we can ask a very clear question about. If our road crew is taking it down and someone's just picking it up, we can just. Gift it as is, no, and remove liability. If we're having them come onto town property. And take down things, then now we're approaching that liability risk, we go goes up, right? So,
Well, here's a question. I am just like Howard. I'm not a lawyer. And I don't even know when that thing was made. I'm just gonna show my ignorance here, right? If there's a high amount of lead in it and we give it away for free. Somebody in the future can prove that they got lead disease from contact with that. Does that liability go back to the original owner?
Can we have a person that wants it just sign a waiver?
Yeah, that's what I asked.
well, there's two different things, one is taking it down, one is accepting it. Accepting it is very clean and easy, we can do that.
You take it as is, period.
As is,
Yeah.
and we acknowledge that it's from this date, it's pre-1978, you're just saying it could have lead paint, but you don't know. I mean, it's easy, it's clean. There's already language you can pull in, but if you want them to take it down on your property, that's a different waiver.
How's the board feel?
I'd say. Have Public Works take it down. And. Release liability. For giving it away.
I mean, if we have to have them sign a waiver either way, like. Just, if someone wants to take it down, then just write that into the waiver. So I think it depends on if someone even wants to take it down, which I would think not, but.
It could get a little more complicated.
It is, yeah. Like 15 feet tall poles, and then how do we make sure they fill in the holes, so we don't have broken ankles on our property, it's just like. Usually when you pull things out of the ground, you want to be in charge, you leave it in a place of safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you two gentlemen feel? There's some laughter coming from this.
Excuse me, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Is there any interest? I mean, Isabel said she'd like to offer it to somebody, but offering it to somebody and having somebody be interested in wanting to take it are two different things. I'd like to find out if there's any interest. I have a feeling nobody's gonna want it.
Yeah, maybe it's just more of, can we let Isabel reach out to people to see if they're interested, because I think she was asking if she could do that.
I'd be more comfortable with that because we've been asked by a resident years to take that thing down and get it out of there. And we never did it. And the highway crew was gonna do it and they never had time to do it. That was when they had 4 people. So, that's why it didn't get done. I kind of with Evan, if somebody wants it, let them come and get it and pick it up. I don't really want to have our guys out there spending half the day trying to take it down. I don't think anybody's gonna want it. We may have to take it down anyway, and then dispose of it, but.
Well, let's just worry about it if anybody wants it, and then we can go.
If they don't want it, I just tell. The road crew to take it down. I guess that's the second question. Then can they just take out the scoreboards and make it go away?
I know somebody that will take it. Guaranteed.
Yes.
Not me.
Not you, of course not.
Well, maybe the historical society wants the scoreboards.
Could this be a nice addition to the arboretum? Yeah.
We already did that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we already took ours down,
But if they kind of-
we used half of it, and there's still a giant chunk of chain link down there that nobody took away, so
Wonderful.
that gives you any sense of.
I don't know where we landed. I think the whole board's fine if somebody wants it. Maybe she lets us know. I don't think we provided enough direction on if highways to take it down or.
Could we have Tom or Isabel circulate an email to other recreation committees to see if there's any interest in it? And then
Or,
deal with it?
I think there's a listserv for, that sort of thing with the, state recreation.
Yeah.
Seems to
you know,
be cases, get some stuff like that.
Yeah,
wonderful. Get rid of it.
But I'm still with Tom, I worry about liability to the Sioux Society we live in.
I'm worried about it even if we give it away after we take it down.
That's right.
Why don't we just throw it out? I mean, we could just have the road crew could take that down pretty quick, maybe an hour, and they'll put it in the dump trailer or the 10-wheeler and make it go away.
Well, there's probably a lot of value in that steel. I would not do that. I mean, if all metals will take it, they'll pay you for it.
There's gotta be a simpler way to deal with things like this.
When you're in government. Find out if somebody wants it for free. I think that's the last thing we said, right?
if somebody wants it, I'm more than happy to have it be reused.
Our attorney can remove liability from us and we don't have to waste the highway's time.
You got a year and 10 months, Peter.
I don't see the board having an issue. All right, next up, Legion Field. Planning, curb cut location. Does everybody in the audience have one of these? I'm assuming you have one, Norton.
I do. Okay.
You probably have a nicer one than I do. Oh,
I go with the date. No, the one you've got is the work issue, the one that's over there.
so this is a plan that. Why don't you, somebody take it away on how this plan was brought to fruition for Tuesday Night Live, Brett Oven.
Well, that's, you want me to talk about this?
Why not? Step up to the mic.
I mean, oh, what's the mic? Okay. All right. For the record, I'm Howard Romero, Chair of Tuesday Night Live and member of a group who has been discussing the Legion Field use and design. All right, so the site plan shows the library building as complete with its annex as it was designed, at least 2 weeks ago. I don't think it's changed, but I don't know. What I tried to do here is fit the needs of the community oven, Tuesday Night Live, and the hockey rink as standing operations that happen in this field. Tuesday Night Live requires the bandstand and a storage box. For some audio gear and such like that. The community oven requires, of course, its facility it's got now, and a place to store firewood. And the ice rink requires a leveled area, measuring at least 50 by 100. And use in the storage box. The storage box that we can get, we have found is a one-trip Connex steel box shipping container that has a door on one side and of course the double doors on one end. And the price is really quite good on that. It's much cheaper than being able to get it from the shed company over at Hardwick. The bandstand has to move. The facility, I actually have it. I don't have it to show, I guess, right now, but it's in my folder over here. The new building actually ends up, it's within the total slope of the bandstand, or the other way around. The bandstand ends up in the total slope for the soils that are going to completely surround the library. They bring it up to 5 feet high. And so that's no matter what we do with the bandstand, we got to move it. It's got to go. And I got to get it out of there before the construction starts on that portion of the project. So in that regard, we're working like crazy to try and find the expertise to move it. I think I've got that figured out now. The fellow over in Waterville would be happy to help out, and I'll provide the volunteer labor to just help him. And then so we'll get it moved. Probably we'll just get it moved somewhere on the north side of the field, on the other side of the playground, and just stash it there until we really know where it's going and that site is ready. Now, the way I've got this drawn is that the bandstand would just slide all the way west of the field. The aforementioned shipping container would be directly behind it, or off to one side, but right tied up against the bandstand. And we would need at the moment there's no access. There's no access to the field at all from School Street. That is to say, there's no curb cut. The library has plunked down right on top of what we were using. And so we don't have a way in except through the Vermont Studio Center. And they've been very good about that, but I don't think that's going to last forever. So we really should have our own way in. And if we go with the plan that I have it drawn, as I have it drawn now, the only place to put the road is hard on the western edge of the property, right where the two buildings that the studio center has just renovated, right on that line, with the bandstand at the back corner. All along School Street all along School Street, we have things like trees, which are new trees, and they're lovely and nobody wants to touch them. But they're so close together, we really don't have a way to get off, another way to get off School Street and onto the property with trucks and cars and stuff. So this is, by my understanding, this is the only place we can put the curb cut. And by the way, I went out and I painted across the sidewalk with white paint, last week. Shown, out there on the site, so if you're confused at all, you can go out and have a look. It's right up against the Studio Center property. Oh, what else can I say about this? We need to get, we need to upgrade the electricity on the field. Last summer, we had a couple of blackouts during concerts. When too much juice was drawn and things shut down. We quickly did a workaround and got it back running. I don't know that anybody really noticed. But anyway, so if we're gonna move the bandstand anyway, we would rewire everything for 200 amps. And be able to put lighting on the field. On this plan, I'm showing one light pole, 25-foot light pole, back against the north line of the woods line. And also another one on the west side against the VSC line. And then, of course, we have one right on School Street. So those three places, and possibly we could put one on the library annex for that corner, which completely surround the field with some lighting. I haven't discussed that with the architects or the library board at all. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to wire the light while we're at it, putting pipe in the ground. We're going to wire for audio speakers, the capability of a PA system at the light poles too. Let's see, the LVRT group, who was it that wanted not the right people, I'm afraid. It was the rail trail people. Okay, rail trail people had mentioned that they would like to see a kiosk. Oh, yeah, they brought this before you before, I think, right? Next to the oven, in that neck of the woods, and that's fine. I got no problem with that. Anyway, so with the plan that you have before you, it all sort of works. There may be some objections to various portions of it, I'm sure, but it all works. And the order of things is such that we want to level the field, or at least a patch of it big enough to put the ice rink on. Let's just say 50 by 100. I brought it down near the oven because it's there's good lighting there. There's good access from the road. There's benches and the power pole is there. The power station is there. So I think that's probably a pretty good place for it. I have no personal opinion as to whether or not we really want to truly level the entire field. That's a big job. And I don't quite know how one goes about that. You get a grader in there and you just start moving turf around until you get it about flat and then reseed it. Oh, I do know the electricity has to go in first. Because that's all a 2.5-inch pipe. So, and I can't do that. We can't dig a trench and just anywhere. We've got to know where the bandstand's going. So at some point soon, we got to get that figured out. Tonight, I guess I would really like to get your approval for a curb cut. I think we need that. Do we need an approval for that?
Yeah.
More questions first?
Or, yeah, we'll do more questions and then I assumed you would want to talk.
Yeah.
That was your presentation. You got a question?
Well, this is really kind of water over the dam, Howard, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it now, but it appears to me as if the library actually encroached more on Legion Field than we thought it was going to in the beginning.
Right.
Because as I remember, the conceptual drawing was it would have been to the right of the bandstand. Now, when it was actually set, it just about,
Oh,
it
and
looked right down through, it just about covers
Yeah.
the bandstand, so.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of land there.
Yeah.
For Legion Field because of the way the library ended up being set. And I don't know how in the world that happened.
well, it happened because, well, you may or may not remember, one of the, Mumley Engineering did a site study, and so did I. And we ended up doing exactly the same site study with one difference. I put the parking for the library on the field side. And Mumley did not, and the library board really wants the parking to be on the elementary school side. So that, while you're in the library, you're not looking over the tops of cars to see the field. And that's been their objection, and we've been going around on this.
I also think it should be important to note that the bandstand, 75% of it or more was not on the town's property until March 10th, 2025.
Well, whatever,
Right.
but I mean, I was hoping in the beginning that we could save as much of Legion Field as possible.
Well, we've lost a little, but I, it's. Tuesday Night Live is what pulls the crowds in, and that tends to fill the field. I still think there's plenty of room for that.
The
Not,
main reason for that switch too was there's a large porch on the left side of the library. And when they made the switch for parking on the right side with the school, it allowed for better drainage coming off of George Hill Road, but then now that porch is incorporated as part of Legion Field for whatever activity they go on. So that was-
I suppose it's all for the best, but I was always under the assumption that you were talking about that the parking was gonna be toward the field. And there was gonna be more room.
I've gotten over it.
All problems solved. Porch a little bit bigger, there's your new bandstand.
Well, we looked at that, that's been suggested. I have been asking for a cross section through the building on that porch. But the architects have been requested not to give out any graphic information, so I don't know what's going on.
Maybe we should request they stop getting paid for posting results.
Well, I'm not gonna get in the middle of that one,
So,
but
point of clarification, Howard, on your drawings,
yeah,
the space between. I guess it would be nice to see the property lines.
well, this is a concept for the field. And I made no intention of. Well, I don't know. Property line is, I don't have a drawing of that. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I didn't transfer what I
Well, the
have.
reason I'm asking the question is, I wonder, it goes to your question about curb cut. If I'm looking at this plan, it looks like there's about 20 feet between what you're showing. Is this line here sort of the edge of bank? Or is
The vertical line, that light vertical line.
Yeah, the one that starts curves and goes up along what would be the road up to the.
Oh,
George
yeah,
Hill
yeah,
Road.
that is roughly, no, that's not the property line. I don't know what the hell that is. quite frankly. I think that may be a part of their parking. I do have. hang on, so-
So the parking is intended to be on the, what would it be, the east side?
The east side, right. And that's what pushed the whole building onto Legion Field.
But it's not actually encroaching on Legion Field, it's still within
Oh, the bandstand? I mean, the
the
library?
library.
No, the library is a little bit on Legion Field.
It's actually partially on Legion Field.
I think so.
I do see we were going through some select board questions. Do you have an answer for where everything's oriented?
I have a real specific question. I was led to believe in talking with the committee and with talking with some members of the select board. That this was being paused. And that this plan would not be put forth in this. Discussions that the committee was gonna move on that. And that. I think Tommy used the, put the brakes on 2 weeks ago in the hearing before. So I was under the impression that this was not moving forward.
All I'm looking for tonight is a curb cut. I want permission to put a curb cut somewhere.
That's all his questions are, and I still have some questions to ask too. I don't think we're approving this plan specifically.
No, you're not. I'm not asking
The
you
first
to.
time I saw this was Friday. And maybe.
No, I sent it to him and he's passed it around, so.
Yeah,
But to answer Joe's question, you touched on it in the very beginning, Howard, you said you were gonna move that bandstand over a little bit.
Gotta go somewhere.
Before they started construction, and then the final location would be determined at a later time.
That's right.
That's what he said in the beginning, Joe.
That's right, Joe.
Right, you did say that, but I'm not talking about put over a plan, like I was under the impression that. A plan was not being put forth at this time, that people were re-looking at the entire process.
Well, basically they are, they're just looking for a curb cut right now, just looking for a spot to access the property.
I was waiting for my turn to talk, but, what I was gonna say is, I really appreciate the work you've done on this. I think you've done a great job, and I'm in full support of Tuesday Night Live, want Tuesday Night Live, but don't get me wrong in what I say. But at the meeting, when we look at the committees, I would like us to look at more holistically how green spaces are organized, since we're going to have some new green spaces. And for us to maybe hopefully have a committee that would be more a part of planning instead of having to gather a group of stakeholders and do it like the process that we've had with this so far. Because I feel like we're gonna run into this again in future projects. So my hope is that we could pause on this. I know we have money we need to spend, so I'm wondering if we could spend it on things that we know are gonna stay there, like we know the oven's not moving, and maybe like some improvements like that instead of a big plan like you put together, which again, I really appreciate. But maybe pausing on this and looking at where we want things with all of our green spaces and our future spaces. I'm really excited you guys are gonna be at Legion Field this summer, and I'm curious how that goes.
We're not on Legion Field. this
That's what
summer.
you meant to say, you meant to say. Hold on.
I know your group has reservations about being there, but I'm wondering how that goes, and maybe we'll get some good insights to see.
Well, sure, we want to know all those things too.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, if all the downtown stuff west of Railroad Street is gone. I mean, a lot of it is, that's huge.
Mhm.
But I gotta move this bandstand.
Mhm.
It has to go. And I need a curb cut to do it, so.
Tom Kearney also stopped by last week asking for a curb cut before the tractor parade.
Right.
To do a static display and just under access. But,
Incidentally, I want to say one other thing. So on the eastern side, on the right-hand side of the library and its annex. I have a site plan, but I don't have it with me, alas. That shows exactly how they're laying it out on the topography that they've got through there. And so I was sort of hoping that maybe we could use that parking lot, the fairway of the parking lot. Around the end of the building and have a curb cut there that would go right through where the bandstand is now. Get onto the field, but the fact of the matter is, they need that for handicap accessibility, so we can't go through there. So we have one and one only place to put the curb cut to get on Legion Field, and that's where I've got it on the drawing.
excuse my lack of education on what a curb cut is, but you're just saying like putting in this like driveway to the backside?
We cross a sidewalk and a curb.
Cutting out the sidewalk and then putting in drop downs and across, so maybe not the driveway goes in,
Mhm.
but at
Oh.
least just like cuts the sidewalk out, so it's at grade.
I'm sure we would have to. Some permanent development maybe.
That's, yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, they own the sidewalks.
So
And
you
how do you do access permits for there's a sidewalk now?
you don't need the road put in to get the bandstand moved, though, you just need the curb.
Well, I gotta be able to get, I do need to be able to. And some stuff like that in there.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Now, we could probably just use the studio center access for now. But I don't wanna count on that. And at some point, you need a curb cut. And we're not gonna take any of your trees down.
There's
Like the world is full of trees,
Can we pause for a second?
really.
It's
So,
been very patient.
all right,
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just to speak again in favor of this idea of putting pause in a bigger way. I understand, the need for a curb cut, I'm not opposed to a curb cut. But I think making this plan about moving electricity and putting a road in further diminishes the field. And once this conversation came up, and we came to the meeting last week, I've had numerous people that I didn't even know were listening in or just stopped by and said, yeah, you're right, I think Tuesday Night Live has really outgrown the field. Now, I don't feel strongly one way or another, but I think if we're spending money to lock us into some plan on what we're doing on Legion Field based on Tuesday Night Live 2 years from now, when we don't even know exactly what the library is gonna look like, since you might put it on 2 stories. And we don't know how the field's gonna feel, and then if you take some road off the other side, I mean, as you know, my concern is that the bandstand does not end up right behind our house. But I think, Legion Field is a lovely field and it's really great for community event, for community gatherings. And that's what Tuesday Night Live has been for a long time, but has turned into in a lot of ways into a big event. And on a smaller field, that big event may not be appropriate. And we may learn this summer that it's actually pretty wonderful to be out at Old Mill Park. Or we might learn that FEMA buyouts are approved and maybe there would be some other community space in town that would be more appropriate than Legion Field. So I just, would really appreciate space to think about how this park is used before we lock in some of the town money on this town land for plans that are uncertain.
well, that's a good point. However, we are using the third, everything that I've done here will fit in the $30,000 that we have a grant for. So no town money is expected to be used for this at this point.
Well, it's a town grant.
It's still town money.
Well, it's designed for Legion Field and Legion Field only, as far as I know.
Well, if I may speak, I mean, nobody in town seems to know much about this grant. And what it's for. And who's gonna spend it and who's in charge of that. And Legion Field is a public field. It's available to every single person who lives in this town, 365 days a year. And, like I said, I was led to believe that this process was going to be put on pause and redesigned, and a more open process was going to come out of this. Right now, we're discussing whether you are or not, but this plan that's being presented here, is a very Tuesday Night Live centric plan designed by one person. Not really in dialogue with all of the stakeholders.
We wanna have It'd be easier to have a special select board meeting, everybody can come and talk about this plan. You're asking for a curb cut.
I just want a curb cut. I gotta get that building out of there in the next 2 weeks.
That's
so-
my question.
Well, me too. That's the only question I'm here
No,
with.
my question might get more trivial. It has to move. It
Yeah,
can only move one direction,
right.
and that's
How
because
far does it have to?
It's just out of the way. I'm gonna get it out of there and tuck it against the woods.
Well, I guess that's what I would like to know, that's what I've heard, we're just gonna move this, 20 feet out of the way. And we're not gonna go forward with this plan, that's what I was told last week, now I feel like I'm being told something else. So I wanna know who's telling me what, and who is in a position of authority to, stand by what's being told to me.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to reiterate, I mean, that's what Howard said in the beginning, he's just gonna move it over and the final location will be at another time.
Yeah, it could be another part of town for all I know.
I mean, he just wants to get it out of the way. Now, you did say something about using the art studio property, could you use that just in the interim before there's a curb cut to move that over?
Probably. I, right now, I can't tell you, of course.
Well, to tell you the truth, Howard, I understand your pain really about something when you put your heart and soul into something and it's always been there for years. It's hard to see it move someplace else. But as we know, that Tuesday Night Live started out in another location years ago.
Right.
In a very small location.
Right.
And then it morphed into a larger location. And there is a possibility that, and we hate to change, but there is a possibility that it might turn out better over to Old Mill Park. And so if that be the case, Howard, then why do we need to go forward with this project the way it is?
I think
All,
the straight up question is the curb cut.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Regardless.
just the curb cut.
Can I just add a curb cut that is needed for access for whoever's doing the ice rink? And the first week in September for the tractor parade
And people that mow it.
and the people that mow. So it just needs, no matter what, it needs a curb cut.
Can we get back to my question?
Which is,
Why does it have to move right now? Can a crane not lift this building? Is it? Am I overthinking this, underthinking this?
what do you mean? I mean, I looked at cranes, they're budget busters for something like this.
Is that, we can't use it because of money, that's fine answer. I
Yeah.
just-
It's money.
The angst around it, I go that there's gotta be a way that it could be moved.
I've looked at all kinds of ways. I even studied putting the thing on 4 hay wagons. It's just, it's all tying them all together and rolling it out of there. That was a little out of the picture,
Okay.
but no, this guy, Michael Lamphere over in Waterville, has moved buildings all the time. In fact, he moved buildings for Joe and Kathy's place too. And he said, this is fine, we can do this easily. But I just want to get the building out of there before construction starts,
Out of the way.
out of the way.
Park in the middle of the field for the summer.
Well, not in the middle of the field, but yes, that, up against the woods somewhere.
Tom, it's my understanding that phase 2 of the library and the concrete work for that is potentially months out.
Say we had a bid set tomorrow, ready to go. It would take me probably a week to put together an RFP. And then we have to go a minimum of 3 weeks on the bid registry, Vermont bid registry. So we're a month before we even select somebody. And then they have to mobilize.
We're gonna be able to do this project
What?
by December 31st.
We have till December 31st, 2026, depending on 3 to 5.
So we don't have to get it out of there in 2 weeks.
We don't.
Is it a factor of
Well, it's a fact.
lining people up to do it?
I hate to bring this up, but I'm gonna, because this is a public forum. The guy who's helping me move, whose expertise I'm relying on to move this, has stage 4 cancer, and he's not well. I really gotta get this done, guys. man. I really gotta get it done.
That's a good, I understand that.
And we've got the money to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the least expensive alternative.
Can he get in, I mean, right now, that whole area where the old, building was, where the library is now, is pretty much wide open.
You get around it probably.
Could he physically get around it?
Yeah, presumably, and we might even, and we might be able to get in through the studio center. I don't know whether they'll object or not. Right now, they've got a man lift right in the middle of it all, but
So
that's.
I did speak with the studio center late Friday night, on my way home. They are planning plantings along that property line.
They've done that already. That's done.
They're just, I think we're on borrowed time. And
But if they could get in where the library is right now, again, that's right now, it's like, there is no curb.
And it was set up to take 90,000 pounds of 10-wheeler.
Yeah.
It's got decent base.
So we've got.
Yeah, we're gonna have.
Piles of stone. And
Yeah,
dirt.
there's got some stone that's gotta get moved and some dirt.
Do you think you could squeeze in on the west side?
The west side?
Okay.
I don't know, maybe.
Mr. Chairman.
You ready to make a motion? for
Yeah,
that?
yes, the deal is, looking at this plan and Howard spent a lot of time on this. And came to the conclusion that the curb cut should be in the location. That's on this print. Provided, and it has not been surveyed, provided that it is not encroaching on anybody else's property. Except the towns, I would move that we put a curb cut in this general location.
Motion on the floor for a curb cut. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? I don't know what process is needed, but whatever, we gotta go through the village.
The village. has-
And one
the
of
village has a
them,
process.
yeah, can I add one thing?
So,
I think all I need at this stage over there, if in fact I can reliably get around the building, the construction site. Is just to take the curb, just that wretched piece of concrete out of the way. And hand trowel in a little ramp right there, and just so I can get over this, so we can get a truck over the sidewalk. I mean, it does,
and we don't own it. The village does. So
Yeah.
we can't give you permission to remove the curb.
okay,
We're going to have a bunch of sidewalk work done soon. DTH Construction has offered to donate the sidewalk for free in front of the library, so that's gonna be same location. And we have sidewalks to repair where the building moved over that crack as part of the relocation costs. If it's, I don't think the sidewalk work should hinder the process. I think to Mike's point, if it's within town property and the permits from the village can go through. Would the board consider this location to get it done?
Yeah, that's my motion.
That's what the motion is, in second.
And your motion doesn't include building a road, it's just the curb cut.
Just the curb cut.
right. That's
All
all
those
after.
in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sorry, no, well, I rushed that one, but I think I already got 3 ayes.
Nay.
Opposed, Adrian's with nay. The ayes have it.
Okay.
All right, that was the curb
Thank you.
cut,
So,
Thank you, Howard.
yeah, you're welcome.
just the curb cut.
Just a curb cut. That's all I want. That's all I'm here. The only reason I came.
Okay,
Thank you for doing all of
Sure.
Thanks, Howard.
is there a curb cut going on to Legion Field? Yes,
No, are you still on the subject of moving to planning?
I was moving on, but would you have something you'd like to add?
What's the plan? To have a plan.
Don't know.
Plan has not been decided.
I would suggest that
I mean,
having
the
a
plan,
public
what's the
hearing,
planning
can you hold on
process?
just a second? I would suggest that having a public hearing to discuss a plan for Legion Field would be appropriate.
That's what I was talking about with a special meeting.
I know. And I think if we called it, let's a public hearing. It would be a public hearing on the select board, but that would be an opportunity for members of the public to come in and express their thoughts on a planning process for Legion Field. And, you know, it may well be that, Tuesday Night Live ends up in some other location, just by natural process. You may find out that Old Mill Park is the best location since. God only knows
Color
what.
toilet paper.
Yeah, color toilet.
Maybe all
Place
the
better.
properties along Main Street, who knows?
Right.
Public hearings. Well, I'll have to send out some dates for.
We wanna, it has to be, my recommendation would be do it at 6 o'clock before an already scheduled meeting, so you're already planning on being here, so usually that.
Or 5:30,
Yeah,
gives everybody an hour.
You think there'll be a big turnout? You need to have it open, yeah?
I would be.
It's likely to be large.
we
You
can
think?
do it, we can actually do it at least.
Yeah, provided we have decent weather.
Yeah,
We're kind of looking at this a little narrowly though, just doing like a hearing or getting public input on just Legion Field when we could be getting opinions on all green spaces. Even though I know the money is just for Legion Field, but. And. I mean, I'm hoping from the committee restructuring thing, we might have a committee that look at green spaces and build a process for how to go about planning for green spaces, but I know that we're trying to make decisions on something right now, so we might have to do it differently right now.
From a historical perspective, Nat Kinney's been, how many years has Nat wanted to talk about a planning process for Legion Field? Beth Boyd has talked about wanting to have a plan for Legion Field. I just think your idea is a great one, and you know, maybe we can get there, but right now we got Legion Field to deal with, and it's seems like an opportune time to do it, so I just think we should pull the money. Get some public input.
Put a plug in, second meeting in June,
I was just gonna ask, do you want to do June 16th and we could
5:30.
5:30, do you want to do it here or try to get a hold of the school will be out of session, I think, that week.
Probably.
What they're done on the 18th of June.
Not quite yet.
I don't have a problem doing it here. Since I've been on the board, we've never brought enough people to a meeting where we had to end the meeting.
I mean, it takes 49 people, and I don't know, maybe we get 49 people, I doubt it, but.
Yeah, I doubt that too.
And then add it in your calendar. We'll have to talk.
You have to
Probably
notice
this
it for
Friday,
2 weeks instead of the 2-week notice period instead of 48 hours.
Hey, folks, this is Paul Warden. Am I allowed to speak from a distance?
What's up?
LCPC all grant, then they are calling Johnson Visioning. And currently it's focused somewhat on the Sterling Market property, but there's opportunity to roll in some other sites as well. And that might be a good opportunity to talk about Legion Field as part of that process. They've hired Du Bois and King as a facilitator and to draw ideas out. And there's not a date yet set, but it should be sometime June, July.
We're not going public hearing before then. Can we touch base tomorrow, Paul?
I'm sorry?
Can I call you tomorrow and we figure out the logistics?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, it's been years in the making, so I guess another couple months won't hurt.
Maybe.
Don't hold off till we talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next up. Town administrator and community economic development specialist priority list. I was trying to catch Randall before he logged off, he's not here. We had started the process with a different board. We owe it to both employees to provide a priority list. And we circulate all priorities for every board member in funneled to me, and then I can compile a list for our next planning meeting that's very clear and concise. I feel like we have a more productive conversation. I don't want to bump this another month. I'm realizing it's late. I only have half of the crew we're talking about. I don't feel like it's fair to use.
Yeah, I appreciate the rush, thank you.
Well, it's-
Not the rush, but I like reorganization.
is the board comfortable with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Priorities like projects or?
Everything under the sun. I think we can
Okay.
all say it'll be projects, but there are certain things.
You can come up with a project prior,
No. And, you know, maybe we could work together and get a Google survey or something. Look, 3, 4, 5, or something like that, but
so does this end up being sort of our board's priority list where we're assigning priorities to
yes.
some to us? Ultimately, it's, you know, Tom might get one, Randall might get one, Peter might get two.
Leave me out,
Mike might get three.
leave me out.
Request, would you guys also like, you know, the whole thing about the sheriff's report or the agenda and packet in the past? Like, also use it to say what I can do better, you know, like, Tom, you're not prioritizing this, but we want you to, you know, so. I think it can be small things too and day-to-day things, but it's just like putting it on my radar is like that direct request and also be helpful. So not just big projects, but little things too, I appreciate.
Okay.
Now, you guys all agree, I think that's probably, but I would, if you're willing, I would like that, maybe.
And we're not gonna get met with sarcasm we got earlier, the little things.
I didn't realize it did sarcasm. Maybe I did.
So. The
Watch the
board, the
video.
board needs to get their lists
I think
to myself by the end of this week. I want them by Friday. I'm going to share everybody's questions or lists with Adrian. We're gonna get together a Google Doc so everybody can just set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can always add to it, right?
I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm out of town from Wednesday to Sunday. You ain't gonna get a list from me,
You can, well, I say.
cause I'm not gonna send
say
it from my
Friday.
camp.
Mike's not gonna open an email by Friday. I will be pushing.
It's good to have a target date.
I will be pushing. Road reclassifications is the next item. Tom has a write-up. It's a little bit slightly different nuance than we had talked about, but I think the big question, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, does this board want to take up some road reclassifications? I don't think we have the appetite or the gumption to do everything that's needed. I think Tom needs clear direction from the board. Can he work for the planning commission and the highway supervisor to come up with a recommendation of roads to be reclassified? My recommendation is 2 roads, or we could pick 3. But I don't think we can look at a list of 20 roads and get that all done in the summer. There's a process for each road.
It's a lot easier to do a lot at once than it is to do multiple.
Except that you have to have a site visit for each and every road, we don't.
And you have to notice.
Well, if
to
you plan it in a
every
day.
resident.
That, well, anyway, so you spend one day and do a 30 minutes apart and show up. Anyways, that's.
Every year that I've been on the board previous to this, where we talked about road reclassifications, we go with this grand idea and nothing happens. I'm asking to shoot right for the knee. And not for the sky.
Well, this has all been done, it's just, there's another make work project, I mean, it just never ends. Just never ends.
This one will probably never end. I think, you know, there's a couple of them that are no brainers to me. They're not even roads there. They're class 4 town highways. But there's a bunch of other segments that are hydrologically connected, that tie directly back to what the planning commission provided us 3 years ago. What the board want to do? We could just say we're not gonna reclassify roads. This will not come back up again this year.
We don't absolutely have to do it, why bother?
Adrian, how do you feel?
don't have strong feelings either way. It says there's concerns over control of legal trails. Is that,
I think, there's currently litigation going on in, it's Chelsea, where, it's in, I don't know if it's in the Superior Court or if it's gone up to the Supreme Court. Where, the control of legal trails is being challenged, so. Why this is relevant is if the town, right now, the town has a financial responsibility to class fours. That's for the first time in Vermont history, this is new, I think 2019, when the emergency came out. So there's a motivation to declassify class fours to legal trails, but the board should just be considerate that there is current litigation, whether or not the select board will still maintain control of legal trails in the future. That it's in the courts. I haven't heard anything more, but it should be on our radar. I think I put it on, you probably on the board then, but forward it to the board at that time. Just be mindful that we should just, before we make anything legal trails, we should just check in on that process. And before we make anything class fours, we should know what that means, and before, you know, we should also know what our responsibility is for current class fours. Which is, again, looking at the broad, before we do something, we need to know the ramifications. So that's why it feels like a bunch of comments running, but every action we have is gonna have a lot of ramifications for it.
What are your thoughts, Peter?
So. Is it better to hold off doing anything at the moment?
I think there's still a process to get started, and some of them we can do. We can safely get things, we could even discontinue a few, you know, the libraries, the 7 Library Street, we could turn that into a legal trail. If we still own property there, then we still have control over it too, you know, so like, or we could do, I'm not saying we should, you know, we should hold off on that too until we know what's happening with the buyouts, but. And then there's some roads that have trees growing up in the middle of it. Do we even? Right now, it's a class 4. Do we want to just say legal trail and see what happens? There's one out off that starts off of Hoag. And Patch Road is another one. Or we just,
Segments.
yeah, exactly there. Or we should just look at what's going, I think the process is about opening our eyes to the whole picture. And then as we move through the MRGP, that road inventory grant, that was that's gonna identify more of the segments that we have to fix now. And the end of Cotton Hollow is completely gone. So right now, we're required by law to fix that, but we're obviously not fixing it. And then, you know, so there's just questions that what do we want to do? You know, there's no right or wrong answer, but I just think we have to be aware of the whole picture.
They wants us to do it, they need to do something.
I would ask that a few years ago, when we talked about this, I got LCPC to generate some maps of the highways, and they included, you still got them? Good for you. I think I gave my set to Tom and I never got them back, but. It's, you know, they got lost on his desk somewhere, they just don't. Yeah, so my point is, I think it would be great if every board member had one of those.
Around the back wall.
Yeah. There you go. And you know, that's useful because it shows and they may change as a result of the study that LCPC is doing. But it gives us, you know, some idea of what should be the priorities. And I agree with Evan, you know, we shouldn't, in my opinion, we shouldn't try and do, you know, 10 roads or 12 roads. We should try and do great, focus on them and get them done. And the other thing that I think is really important, we talked about it at our last meeting. Those people that are living out there on what we consider class 3 driveways, a single house, and the guys are having trouble backing up. We need to write them, I'll make this a motion if I have to, but they need to be informed that the town has the right to put in a turnaround And they cannot block that turnaround, or we won't plow the road.
Period. Second.
Was that a formal motion?
Yeah, it was a motion. We need to send letters to all of the people that live on these roads indicating that the town. Needs a turnaround and that they cannot be blocked from. And it needs to be a turnaround that, you know, if we're sending a tandem out there, it's gotta be a turnaround that they can.
Get around. We don't want our trucks backing down driveways.
For Donna, are you clear on Duncan's motion?
I was just gonna ask a question about it. Is the letter gonna be to class 3 roads that only have one house on them, like? what-
One or two.
Any dead end road that requires a turnaround for snow removal.
Then,
And list a lot of them.
And most of those happen to be. You know, single homes at the end of a class 3 highway.
So if they can't put a turnaround in, they just can't get it plowed anymore, is the.
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't, if. I think the idea of sending a pickup truck up there to plow those roads is a huge burden on the rest of the taxpayers that we don't need to know.
Currently use the Mark's truck, the one that came up in debate 2 weeks ago, and that's the one that gets stuck the most.
And we shouldn't have to do that. If we've got a truck out on that route,
Well, Mark only does the big ones, there's what, 5 unpaved ones,
oh, wait.
more than that.
And then, you know, we just, it's standard operating practice to. You gotta be able to turn a truck around. We shouldn't
How
have
long
that.
are we gonna get them to
That's
do
you,
that?
sorry, just to clear and concise, that's your motion. You seconded that motion, we're in further discussion, sorry, I just didn't want to lose track of
Yeah,
my.
sure. Or we didn't give them like a certain amount of time where they can do that?
Well, they're not even technically responsible. It really is our responsibility
Mm,
to put a turnaround in there.
mhm,
You know, it's not their responsibility to provide it.
mhm.
It's a town highway. But what's happened is a lot of those people have said, we don't want trucks turning around here. And they end up parking, you know, their vehicles in a place that prevents us
In the
from
highway right away.
backing up.
Mm, okay.
They need to be just told that we're gonna build it right here, so we can turn around.
Well,
And you better have your vehicles out of this turnaround, because if your vehicle is not out of here, so we can turn around, we're just gonna back right out of here.
for some clarity, because we're under further discussion. Who is gonna prepare mail letters?
I think our town administrator should do that.
Okay,
Send
do you want him to sign them? Do you want a signature on it, or just say sincerely, select board?
If it comes as per order of the Johnson Selectboard, I don't care whether Tom signs it or you sign it, doesn't matter to me.
You can, per order of the select board, you can sign it.
By what date, because we're talking about priorities just barely, do you want these letters sent out?
ASAP.
What's reasonable? You got a workload,
I would say by June 1st.
the letters will be sent by June 1st to all residents on dead end class 3 road.
Will you send them a second letter when, like, right before this first snow falls? You guys remember?
You know,
'Cause that's pretty early.
would it be possible to consider giving them the option to say, we need to put in a turnaround suitable for a tandem with wing truck, or would you like to discontinue the road? So they have the choice. It's that way, either we're gonna do this, or we're not gonna even call the town project.
So they're gonna have to sign the statement saying that they've thrown that road up.
They
Well,
can't,
they can't do that.
they cannot throw a road up, they can.
I know,
Ask
we-
the board, they could get a petition, there's a process.
I understand that it's a long drawn out process.
But it would, at least it's an act of good faith of the select board to be like, look, this is hard on us and you're getting a service greater than most residents. We're willing to continue it, but we just have to be able to do it with the equipment that we have today, not in 1850, you know, things have changed.
Yeah, there's a lot of. Very few people have their driveways plowed for free.
And so you just, if they get a turnaround and it's not a burden on the town, well then keep the public right away open, but.
I would agree to amend that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be sent out as an option, but, you know, in the absence of putting. I guess we probably have to double check this. I believe that if we are not able to turn around or effectively plow that road, I believe that we can refuse to plow. That's probably a legal question that we should check. So if we're threatening not to plow it, we probably should not.
I know some people, I don't know this, I've never talked to them, but our road foreman has mentioned that some people have actually have interest in discontinuing it altogether, which would be a benefit, it would just reduce maintenance and time. And so if we don't give them the option, they might not do it, but for some people, they might want that.
Well, the deal is, they're gonna want their road maintained. Okay, but they may not want it plowed.
And it kind of goes, they're all together, you know, like summer maintenance and winter maintenance. You know, we shouldn't separate, I feel we shouldn't separate it out.
Set your bottom dollar, they want it graded and.
Follow up
after storm.
on the legal question. Letters will go out by June 2nd, because June 1st is Sunday. Good. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
But can,
and the ayes have it.
can't we like, what if there's like a new person that moves in there between June and the first plow?
There's such a long process to this. So,
Okay.
and like. The reality is, like, when we make it about plowing, it's kind of limited to. To your concern, but if you make it about the public right of way, if you're not able to maintain that public right of way. It also means we can't get up there with a grader, it means we probably can't get up there with the loader, it means we can't get up there. Or, you know, with a 10 wheeler to back in material when it comes time, and so it's like, but if there's a turnaround at the end, big enough for a 10-wheeler, that turnaround also will handle all the equipment. And that's why I feel like by making it all or nothing. It just kind of makes it cut and dry, is it gonna be, because those roads also aren't up to specs for class. 2 or 3 roads anyways, I mean,
Some,
they're pretty, some of them are, you're right, you're absolutely right.
My concern is just them getting the letter and communicating with them. That's my concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, property owner has some responsibility to pass that information on to a prospective buyer too.
right,
Okay.
I mean, this all was a shoehorn on road reclassification. Does the board want to undertake the big dog or shoot for 2 or 3 or? Do not.
With any of them.
I'm just gonna go. Pick one of those 3,
Small bike.
Adrian,
Small.
I'm small bite,
Done.
Mike is outvoted, so yes, Tom, can you come back to our next planning meeting, the second meeting in June? For the recommendation, after talking with the chair of planning commission and Jason for 3. Either roads or road segments. Actually, I guess any road segment on a road, so 3 roads, and it could be a portion of a road or a whole road. Good?
Yep.
Is there anything needed for the interlocal, Duncan?
We don't have to do this tonight, we can wait until our June 2nd meeting, so it's up to the board.
Do what?
I had asked to have authorization for the chair to sign the interlocal agreement, but it doesn't have to be done tonight. I can bring you up to speed, it won't take very long, but
I say June 2nd.
Fine.
That's what you asked for originally.
Yep.
You good with that? Okay.
What
Seven,
can we do while Mike's out of the room?
in your packets, to stay on this subject very quickly, there is a copy of the spreadsheet showing the updated costs for the interlocal agreement, it's so you can actually
This is the one that's in the
read the
email.
damn thing.
This one with the meeting.
It's one that's in the email. So if you have time to, do the homework on that, that'll basically tell you the cost. I'll just say that basically we are still under our budgeted costs, under the worst case scenario.
Yep. 17 got moved down. Any comments on old business? Duncan had asked that you add the cemetery maintenance RFP, which is really RFP. No other comments on old business?
Did the RFP go out?
No, they need to inform one.
Okay.
It's just, you didn't want it.
Yeah, I just don't want to
We
follow.
miss that every day. It'd be nice to do that.
Us old guys forget stuff.
Speak for yourself.
There was one more thing for old business.
Oh, you mentioned something that you wanted to add to old business, but what was it?
Whole business.
That doesn't all scribbly.
You did want to add something.
He did, yeah. Oh, he remembered
Maybe,
what it
let me
was.
check, see if I wrote it down.
Was it the stop sign speed limit ordinance or adopt appointment policy?
Wasn't on it, neither one was.
We did one of those.
I think it might have been the sheriff and the ordinance in that conversation, but I can't.
Not think on it. I scribbled everything.
Mike, I did ask
Oh, it's the
what we could do
committee
while you were out of the
communication
room.
thing.
Committee communication, thank you.
There you go.
Checklist.
Checklist, yeah.
What Donna said,
Sorry, Donna, what? You told us. It was a committee thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else on old business, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session for real estate as allowed by.
I do have one old business thing. And I'll try and make it really quick. So Tom had circulated an email about the library deed having some conditions about selling the property.
For executive session on this meeting? No.
I don't think it has to be, I just.
Okay.
If you haven't read the email, read it, reread it. At a future meeting, we should have a discussion about how to fix it.
Agreed.
When was that?
That was. Agreed.
Couple of weeks ago.
that's when you sent that email?
No, Tom said, at our last board meeting, we talked about selling the library.
Yeah,
And at the very last thing I said was Tom should check the deeds to
Yeah,
see if there are any conditions in the deed, and there were.
Oh.
I'm gonna argue that. Sale of town land is probably. Confidential. Although you have to notice it, but, wouldn't details be confidential, specifically like.
But it's the library's-
Devaluing it.
Well, the deed's a public document.
Touche.
So. I don't think it,
it's the library's purview. To sell that property, if they want.
ultimately, the way the deed is written,
Yeah,
we have to seek their concurrence
yeah.
to sell it for use other than library purposes.
So. Under that, we gotta get permission from them.
Yes. Hearing nothing else, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session for real estate transactions potential. As allowed by 1 VSA 313(8)(2). Which is negotiating and or securing. Real estate purchase or lease options.
Then we're gonna go out of that one and come back in for the next one we want.
As well as entertaining a motion. To enter executive session for employee evaluations as allowed by 1 VSA 313(8)(3). As long as. A portion of the executive session. Tom and Rosemary are privy to, but the other portion they're not. Is that both motions?
I would move that we enter into executive session for the first one, the real estate one, is it A2,
Yeah,
inviting Tom and Rosemary. And that after following that, we have an executive session with board only under 313(8)(3) employee evaluation.
okay. There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second,
Further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the board's entering executive session at 9:42.